Thank you all for coming out tonight. This regular meeting of the Carefree Town Council will come to order. Please take a silent roll call.
Mayor, we have Councilmember Croyer telephonically.
Okay, very good. And Tommy Kernan, please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would just ask anyone who has a chance to speak of the council, or if you come up to the podium tonight, just speak loudly into the microphones so the folks at home can hear you and we can hear you and our audience can hear you. Item number 1 on the agenda is the consent agenda. Item 1, approval of the April 9th. First, to clarify, all items listed here under are considered to be routine by the town council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be discussed separately. Item number 1, approval of the April 9th, 2024 Town Council special meeting minutes. Those minutes are not in our packet. Item number 2, approval of the June 4th, 2024 Town Council regular meeting minutes. Item number 3, acceptance into the public record of the June 2024 paid bills. Number 4, approval of the cash receipts and disbursements for May 2024. And item 5, Town Council previously approved membership of the Town of Carefree with the Rural Arizona Health Trust, RAGIT, for the purpose of providing health benefits to town employees effective July 1st, 2018. The proposed amendment deletes reference to a physical office address on the trust documents and instead states that the best way to obtain documents is to contact the trust administrator, currently Gallagher Benefit Services. Would any of the council members like to pull any of the items off the consent agenda? Hearing none? Oh, go right ahead.
Mr. Mayor, we don't have the item number 1 in our packet, so that'll need to come off.
Correct.
Okay.
So if everyone's okay with the items 2, 3, and 4, and 5, I would request a motion to approve the consent agenda items 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Motion.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes opposed? Passes unanimously, thank you. Item number 6 is current events. There's a few things to, just a couple things to alert you to. One, we're doing Carefree Conversations, again, in the Visitor Center, Friday, the 12th of July, 9 to 11. The Visitor Center has a fresh coat of paint. It's been refurbished a bit, so come on by and see us. Air conditioner works, it'll be great. And you get to talk to, I'll be there, and a couple of councilmen will be there, or council members will be there. So it's a great time to come in and talk to us and find out what's going on. The ballots should be appearing in your mailboxes any day, if not already. Information about the voting and some of the details are on our town website, and the election day is the 30th of July. July 4th, a couple days from now, just remember, fireworks are illegal in the town, so there should be no fireworks. And if you have any doubt, just think about the Boulder fire last week and what that was all about and how close it was to our town. Fire-wise, so Rural Metro, the Carefree Fire Department, have a program to educate the public about how to safeguard your house for fires, safeguard your house and your loved ones. So we did a couple of those a month or 2 ago, and we have 2 more scheduled, one July 6th and one July 20th. These are Saturdays, beginning at 9 o'clock in the firehouse in the conference room. I went to the first one. It's great. You learn a lot. It takes probably 45 minutes, and it's well worth your time. And lastly, we're getting ready for the 40th anniversary, and there's 2 programs, the Carefree 40th anniversary for the town. And there's 2 programs we're doing that are that require some public participation. One is on August 16th. Preston Westmoreland will host these, will do interviews of folks who have lived here maybe during 40 years ago or in the meantime, who have a story to tell about our town. So that the event will occur August 16th at Spirit in the Desert. But if you know anyone who was here in those days or has connections to those times, it's a great opportunity to share a story, even if it's exaggerated. It's a great time for that. And then on the 10th of November, we have what's something called For the Love of Story. And that's a different format, not an interview, but an opportunity to come up before an audience and just tell a story for 5 to 10 minutes of something that is related to our town. So if you know of anyone, if you volunteer yourself, Madison in the back, just raise your hand, track her down, let her know, and they'll both be fun events. You'll learn more about them in our social media, in the newspaper, and our website. Okay, is there anything else council has for current events? Okay, very good. Item number 7. Review, discussion, and reconsideration for possible action to adopt the Carefree General Plan, a long-range vision and policy document for development and sustainability in the town of Carefree, and submit to the voters of Carefree at the November 5th, 2024 general election. This item was placed on the town council agenda per the town code for further discussion and consideration. Public comments will be taken. So just for some background, so you have a better feel for this, because we had this on the agenda last month. So our town code permits 2 council members or more to bring an item and place it on the agenda. So 2 council members did just that. So it's on the agenda tonight. And to move this forward, we need a supermajority. So out of 7, that means, just like last time, we need 5 votes. So last time we did this, it was 4-3, so it didn't move forward. That's how it works. So to avoid another 4-3 vote and all the frustration and anxiety that entails, I asked Stacy Bridge Denzak to work with Matt and take comments from different council members and put together some proposed changes to the general plan, which address concerns that have been brought to our attention, and maybe this will break the impasse and get move this forward. So that's what we're here to talk about in this agenda item. So with that, I'll turn it over to Stacy.
Well, I'm actually going to pass it right over to Matt.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Mayor, that was a great intro. Kind of took the words right out of my mouth in terms of I was last before the council and residents on June 4th to talk about the general plan. And at that time, that was the scheduled last meeting of the general plan. I think we covered a lot of ground at that meeting, but weren't able to get to a final conclusion. So it's encouraging that we will have this final effort. Oh, go ahead.
Candace?
Yeah, they're changing the screen. Bear
Okay,
with me. Yeah.
I thought maybe I'd gotten cut off.
Nope, you're here.
Okay, thanks.
Can we drag it over there?
you didn't give me anything after I signed it. If it needs to be changed, because I need to do that next.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Okay, sorry, a little technical difficulty, but hopefully now everyone's on the same screen that we're reviewing. So we wanted to, for the benefit of the conversation today, I won't go read line by line of the slide, but we wanted to give a little synopsis of what we covered in the last meeting so that we're all working from a common foundation. So we obviously heard from council and the varying opinions from council members, but the two items I wanted to focus on this particular slide is bullets 2 and 3. Obviously, we had a lot of residents. We had 17 residents come up and speak. So it's hard to succinctly narrow that all down into one bullet point. But we wanted to share that we tried to listen intently to the feedback that was provided so that we could identify areas that might present some common ground. And so in terms of those that were against the SPA designation for the northwest corner, you can see that the comments shared, whereas there's no financial need, is eminent there. Residents want a say in what is developed. And expressed removal doesn't take away the ability to explore economic opportunity via an applicant-driven process in the future. So again, hopefully everyone feels that's a fair assessment of some of the key takeaways that residents that were against the SPA noted. Those in favor of the SPA cited a need to uphold the fiscal responsibility of the town, favored being able to explicitly state what can and can't occur on that corner rather than evaluate on a case-by-case basis in the future with no baseline guidance to review projects against. So with that input, and as the mayor elaborated in his opening remarks, while it's a very small window, we have a window this evening to revisit some of these talking points, see if we can find some resolution to them, and hopefully move this process forward so that the voters can ultimately determine the viability of this general plan. So with that in mind, the approach for consideration this evening really focuses around promoting and enhance public participation and process and quality design requirements so that we can build in some of those checks and balances that I think we heard from residents at that June 4th meeting and even through prior meetings. So what does that look like? What does that mean? Well, it first means looking at the size of the northwest corner SPA area and reducing that from, it should actually say 21 acres and 5 parcels to 16 acres and 3 parcels. And also include more strict height limitations. It explores keeping the hatch that we had previously reviewed and proposed in order to show the dual land use potential of the site, that it currently is zoned residential and can be developed as residential, but also has a SPA designation if utilized. Can we do more to explicitly require design guidelines as part of the rezone application process to, again, ensure that quality design requirement that we heard from residents as being a key concern? And then all of this is also, I would say, balanced with the notion of how residents are going to participate in the process. So how can we preserve more enhanced public notification requirements and incorporate a citizen participation process to ensure that just like we've applied in some of the other efforts, the sign effort most recently where we apply a citizen advisory committee and that seems to have been a value-added process. And so can we mirror that process in these potential revisions? So that's a synopsis of some of the highlights of where we tried to stitch in feedback as well as comments shared. The next few slides, I want to take us through explicitly what those edits would be. If you looked at the council packet prior to the meeting, this emulates the content in that packet. So if you've previously reviewed it, that's great. But if not, we will go through it this evening just to make sure that we're all working from the same understanding. So you'll see on each of these slides, we reference a page of the existing zoning or of the existing general plan. When you see that page 25, hopefully that resonates with you as we had discussed page 25 in previous meetings. And on page 25 of the general plan, this section is where we introduce the special planning area, the tool itself. So this is not necessarily just dedicated to the northwest corner. This is explaining for the whole entire general plan what a special planning area is. And this language was not or does not exist in the current general plan. And so this is new to the general plan to try and again help inform everyone, whether today they look at it or 5 years from now, what the intent of these special planning areas are. Now you can see that the red underlined text is where we're proposing additional clarifications to try and provide that enhanced level of detail that certain comments shared during our last meeting. So just up front, right when we introduce the SPA area, you can see we include the added language of detailed planning for such areas, including development and design standards in more specific detail. So here we're trying to emphasize and leave no room for debate about the level of detail that is expected when a project is moving forward through the zoning process of what level of detail is going to need to be provided. Now, all of the bullet points stay the same, as you can see, but when we get down to the last paragraph that identifies the current two spa locations in the community, we added the additional language that reads, as such, the plan further recognizes that each SPA may require enhanced planning and community engagement in order to protect adjacent uses and meet the goals of this document. Therefore, any rezone effort associated with any spa shall provide extensive public outreach to ensure all community voices are heard and acknowledged. The rezone process shall also ensure a high-quality, architecturally significant development as carefree residents expect. Now you'll say, great, Matt, it's nice flowery language, but where's the content? And so that's where we then build on that foundation of committing to a strong public outreach and strong quality architectural design. So again, page 25 sets the stage. Then we have the land use plan that the plan on the left is what was recommended by the Planning Commission, and again, that should be 5 parcels, and you can see the footprint of that. Under this revision, it's proposed to reduce that spa area to 3 parcels, and you can see the smaller footprint, but keeping that hatch, again, to just further strengthen or emphasize the dual aspect of still allowing residential but having a spa designation. So then we move on to page 27. And page 27 is what really outlines what is explicitly appropriate for this northwest corner spa area. So we went over this in detail in the last meeting where I read every 9 bullet point. And so on this slide, you can see again in track changes of red how we were trying to revise the language and the overall area to more finely craft this in response to input. So the area is comprised of approximately 16 acres instead of 21 now, and that covers 3 parcels. When we look at that in more detail, it says, given the proximity to more intense uses to the south and east and primary access via arterial streets, a more economically sustainable destination-based resort hospitality use, such as a low-profile casita-style resort with limited compatible commercial retail uses, could be appropriate, provided that the development, and then goes into our 9, which are now 10 bullet points. So under the first bullet point, you can see we refined it to be more committed to then just say effective, but clarify it is a robust, mature, and native open space buffer. So it's not enough to just say it's going to be an open space area. We're setting an expectation that it's robust, mature, and native. We keep the provision that preserves the natural wash through the site. We keep the language that supports the town's fiscal and economic goals, because we heard many share that we're all supportive of the fiscal need of the town. So there wasn't any strong discussion to revise that particular talking point. Then we looked at bullet point 4, utilizes high-quality architectural character, contextual materials, desert colors, all cited uniquely into the existing landforms, complementing the existing adjacent and nearby uses, and avoiding prototypical and/or commercially branded architecture to provide a unique and cohesive design. So here, I know it's a subtle change, but again, we are trying to establish an expectation that this is not or should not be a generically branded or prototypical development, that expectations are higher than that in this particular site. Utilize massing, building heights of 30 feet or less, which is what was previously limited to. But we've also added, unless adjacent to residential, which in that case will not exceed 24 feet. Density to minimize site disturbance, and is thoughtful of adjacent homeowner views to prominent landforms. So again, here we were listening intently to the feedback of concerns about proximity to adjacent uses in relation to the proposed uses. And so to the extent kind of on the eastern side of the site, 30 feet might be appropriate, but as you get closer to residential, 24 feet is something that we worked into this language to respond to the existing residential parcels in the area. We preserve the focus retail components east and south of the existing wash, or where not to have any, or where to not have an impact on existing residential. Incorporates the natural Sonoran desert landscape. And then the other maybe stronger change, right, is 8, prohibits any access to While Away Road and Langwood Lane. So previously, this 5 parcels reached from Carefree Highway all the way up to Langwood Lane. By removing the 2 northernmost parcels, leaving the 3 parcels, that removes any direct connection to Langwood Lane. And then we further add that parking fields are to be located and dispersed and effectively screened from with landscaping, berming, screen walls, or a combination of these elements. And then, of course, we preserve there shall be no drive-throughs, gas station, car washes, storage facilities, box stores, fast food, or outdoor recreation. But we did add recognition of lighting. And so 10, lighting throughout the site will adhere to dark sky requirements, incorporating landscape lighting, low-level pathway luminaries with lighting bollards, and pedestrian scale light poles where needed. So again, That's one part that we try to add or enhance the language to further strengthen the commitment of the town to narrowly craft what is viewed as appropriate on this site within this spa designation. Now, as we go on in the general plan, we also have a goal about this site specifically, goal SC11. And so in SC11 is where we take the opportunity to now ramp up on the design and the citizen participation aspect. So on the previous one, it was more focused on what happens on the site. Now this one is getting more into what happens as we consider development for the site. So here, the goal is to ensure future development within the spa area at the northwest corner of Carefree Highway and Tom Darlington Drive may only occur in a focused manner that conforms with this plan. And so to accomplish that, you can see under policy 2, we try to include specifically, which is not required at this point in time, design guidelines specific to the development shall be included with any rezone application which excludes prototypical and commercially branded architecture. So we're setting up expectation for any rezone in the future that not only are you going to need to show a site plan, but we need to see detailed design guidelines to ensure that at any point during the phasing or development of this site that it will meet the expectations of Carefree. Then to elaborate on the citizen outreach aspect, we went to policy 3, and you can see we strongly enhanced that to incorporate those checks and balances that we heard from many residents being in favor of or being concerned about losing. And so this area impacts more than just residents in the typical 500-foot notification area as specified in the Citizen Participation Ordinance. So that ordinance, for anyone who's not familiar, any rezone application that is submitted to the town must adhere to this Citizen Participation Ordinance, which is in essence kind of a packet that explains how to engage residents, and it has a 500-foot notification boundary requirement. What we're proposing is any rezoning of the area shall require an enhanced notification process outlined in a required citizen participation plan. So in this citizen participation ordinance, every project is required to come forward with what is your plan for public outreach. And that plan is then adhered to through the rezone process. Well, in this case, we're not leaving it up to whoever applies for a rezone. It is not entirely being left up to them what their citizen participation plan will entail, because we then go into detail. At minimum, it's going to have to do these specific bullet points. And that is include all homes and HOA contacts within Carefree 3B, Grandview Estates 1 and 2, and Black Mountain Foothills. Additionally, all notifications will include the Boulders North HOA. Beyond just those HOAs and residents getting notifications, we then are mandating that a minimum 3 neighborhood meetings are to be conducted for this particular site. A minimum 2 large signs posting that are legible from the public right-of-way shall be included. A press release issued by the town once a formal application has been submitted to the town. So again, for those that may not be familiar, when an application is submitted, it's not immediately necessarily something that all residents are aware of. It's through the outreach process that some would start to learn about a project. So by doing a press release from the town when the application has been submitted, it will then be another opportunity to put everyone on notice that a project has been proposed. The town shall send out additional email notifications and post on social media all neighborhood and public meetings. And the applicant shall design and maintain a project web page. And so that is definitely unique in that projects currently are not expected, required to maintain a web page. And so this site is intended to also be a universal location where residents could go and get information on the project as it goes through the application process, and proceed from there as necessary. So again, all of this is layers of the process, and so we're looking at how we can enhance the language for the defining the SPA, how we can enhance the language of limiting the development of the SPA, how we can refine the language that clarifies the process. But then, that's not enough. We all talked about previously that is unique to this general plan is we're introducing a whole new section on actions. The current general plan does not have a to-do list. And the proposed general plan has a long list of action items that we are committing the town to proceed on in order to help champion or carry forward the goals and policies of the plan. And so in this particular case, we're proposing to revise those actions again to help strengthen, hopefully, the public involvement aspect of this SPA process. So currently, the action item SCA-C, you can see we are striking or proposing to strike and replacing it with the town shall form development stakeholder advisory committees to provide citizen guidance and education on the redevelopment of the village center and development of any SPA and or other significant non-residential project to review site history and current zoning and to understand future implications and potential restrictions for the proposal. So this is trying to broaden that. If you were to kind of read through the strike-through language, this revised carries that forward but tries to broaden that to either even more situations of where a stakeholder advisory committee could or would be applied. But we wanted to be explicit for this particular project, and so we also suggest adding the SCAH. The town will form a public outreach stakeholder advisory committee to provide guidance on revising the citizen participation ordinance to include enhanced public outreach and notification standards. And it's encouraged that broad representation on the committee is pulled from the community. So there's two things at play here. We're committing to having a stakeholder advisory committee for any application on this SPA area. But in addition, we're looking at going into the citizen participation ordinance, the actual overall ordinance that guides all outreach, and suggest let's look at that entire ordinance with an outreach committee or a stakeholder advisory committee as well. So again, I think it's the town trying to provide what we heard from residents of a seat at the table to share ideas and thoughtful alternatives to ensure that all voices are being heard. So that really covers the suggested edits overall that build on what we discussed or reviewed in that June 4th meeting. But as a summary, I know this is very small text, we really just wanted to try on this slide in one location to drive home how we really were intently trying to listen, not just to the words, but what residents were passionately saying in the last meeting. So we look at it from a public engagement side. On page 25, as I mentioned, we're trying to acknowledge the SPA public engagement commitment by saying any rezone effort associated with SPA shall provide for extensive public outreach. Then on page 37, we double down on that and talk about added minimum citizen participation requirements that go beyond the 500 feet, add the three neighborhood meetings, commit to larger public hearing signs, broader outreach from the town to the community overall, and a dedicated webpage. And then on page 80, as I just mentioned, we're now following up with the action itself. So it's not just words on a page of just saying, here's a goal and here's a policy we hope to accomplish. It's how are we going to do it? Well, we're going to do it by facilitating this action item of forming this stakeholder committee. Then on the flip side, we, as I open my comments, talk about quality design and high-end development. And so on page 25, we're trying to acknowledge that design aspect by saying outreach notification, or we're trying to acknowledge of the SPA design and development expectations and commitment in the first and last paragraph, as well as the outreach notifications beyond the normal 500 feet. We detail planning for such areas, including development and design standards in more specific detail. The rezone process shall ensure a high-quality, architecturally significant development. Then within the citizen participation requirements, we're clarifying the casita-style resort, robust, mature native landscaping, the avoidance of prototypical commercially branded architecture, the reduction of building heights next to residential, the removal of immediate proximity or access to Langwood Lane, clarification or sensitivity to where parking is provided, as well as how lighting is addressed, and then again, the design guidelines to be reviewed by the stakeholder committee as part of the application process. So throwing a lot out there, but the intent here is to try and show by kind of repeating some of this is we really try to look at all phases of this aspect of the general plan in hopes that it resonates in terms of meeting where some of the expectations that were shared in prior meetings could be addressed. With that, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you for questions or clarifications.
Well, thank you, Matt. Great job. And I'd like to just share a few thoughts that I have, and then we'll open it up to the council to discuss further and any questions they may have for you. So it's clear to me this is quite a daunting task before us today, to trying to find a way forward to pass a motion that'll satisfy both sides. And the positions of both sides are very well defined. You did a nice job, but for those who wish to have it taken out, in large part it comes down to trust of us, trust that we'll build something there which is a quality commercial development that respects the neighbors and respects the desert that's there. People who are against taking it out, our residents, they feel they have not been heard, and they feel that they haven't had an opportunity to participate from day one. Those who wish to leave it in, they believe that the property can be a successful commercial corner and an economic boost to the town, right? Economic boost to our sales tax revenue. And they believe the town council can and will protect the unique property, defining the parameters for development that respects the things that we all care about, and bring a project that's kind of like maybe like the Boulders, which is nestled in the desert, and it's actually a fine-looking project and resort. So the common ground that we have is that we want to find something, a solution that is the best for the town and best for that property. But we have to figure out, how do we get there? How do we accomplish that? As a council, we find ourselves at an impasse. We voted on this thing last month, and it was 4-3. 4-3 to leave the SPA in. You need 5 votes to move this thing. So when the new council is seated in December, chances are it's going to be 3-4, 4-3, or even possibly 5-2 to have it remain, and maybe not even include some of these public engagement measures that have been shared with us tonight. So while we were unable to move the general plan to the voters, the town continues to work with the existing general plan. So what is that? Has an SPA in it, and none of these public enhancement features that we're talking about. And these public enhancement features, what will they do? They will increase public awareness of what's going on. They'll increase opportunities for participation, and they'll improve the opportunities to influence the outcome. Plus, with using the old general plan, all those hard-fought solutions for open space, for water, for residential over retail, they're in limbo. They're not in the plan today. They're in this plan. So by approving the proposal before us, which includes the SPA, we'll give our residents better opportunities to participate, to know what's going on, to influence the outcome. And that we do that by introducing new things. And Matt touched on some of these, but just to review. It allows for much greater than a 500-foot notification. That's what it is today, 500 feet. Around this piece of property, it's a handful of residents. So it's greatly expanded. Today, we require just one community meeting. This change will require a minimum of 3. That's new. This plan calls for the town shall announce to the world through a press release when we get a formal zoning application on this property. We don't do that today. This will be new. These public community meetings will be publicly noticed. So not just the folks who are part of these community meetings will know, the public will know. We'll post it on social media and we'll push it out. We'll use larger signs. So what does that mean? My understanding is the signs that we use are established by state statute. So maybe they're 3 by 3. You go to say a 4 by 4 sign, that's almost 2x the surface area. So we'll have larger signs, whatever they are, bigger than what you've seen there before. And this idea of forming a committee to review this, and I think this came up at our last meeting. A resident suggested it, Barbara Hess. Great idea. So what does that do? So we have something that comes forward, a zoning application, and this committee comes together. Stacy will drive the formation of it. People from different parts of the town, people who live right there, east side, west side, maybe some folks with some commercial knowledge who have businesses in our town, and they'll review the application, the proposal, the design guidelines, the history, the zoning, the implications of it, and what restrictions they should put on it. It's a great tool that doesn't exist today, and that gives the residents much more public input to what's going on. So those items that I just went through, they impact the SPA, right? The northwest corner. But as Matt mentioned, there's other things that are baked into this. We have this thing called the Citizen Participation Ordinance. That's where we get this 500 feet and one community meeting and some other things. So this should be updated. And so we'll put together some residents to update it. And probably the outcome of that will be many of the things that we just went through, but maybe other things, just to ensure greater public awareness, participation, and influence. And then if we just look at the SPA, what's right there? So this proposal reduces the acreage from 20 to 16. It carves out those 2 lots on Langwood Lane. So where are they? For those who don't know, one lot is on the corner of Tom Darlington and Langwood Lane on the southwest corner, and the other lot is immediately adjacent to that. So by carving those out, there's no ingress or egress to this property any longer. The ingress and egress is going to be either on Tom Darlington or on Carefree Highway. The building heights is a great idea, whoever came up with that. So our residential zoning today says the max building height for all of our homes, residential housing, 24 feet. So any adjacent structure, to those homes will be 24 feet, just like a regular home. It's a great idea and a great addition. This idea of parking, dispersing the parking, that gets us away from big parking fields, much more aesthetic. It's a much improved thing, And we added language about dark skies. And it's not just our dark sky ordinance that we have in our general plan, or in our ordinances today. It's stronger than that. It talks about, we can limit maybe the height of the lights, or have something called, like, they're bollards. They're maybe 4 foot tall along walkways. So the lighting is not so intrusive, it doesn't just go everywhere. It's a much better way to manage it. So what we've put in here is language, it's above and beyond our dark sky and lighting ordinances today. So if the council approves sending this general plan as it's been amended, one of two things will happen. The measure will either pass with the SPA in it, and our residents who wish to take the SPA out will have more resident-friendly tools to work with to manage it than they've ever had before. Should a zoning application be made, residents will have much more public participation, awareness, and influence than if a general plan amendment was made with the rules that we have today. And so I've been mayor for 18 months, about 18 months, and one of my key things is public engagement. And I'm here to tell you, the public engagement that we've built into this thing is a game changer. It's really night and day to what exists at this moment. So, what if the measure fails? Can fail? What happens then? Well, it goes back to the council, and they'll ask themselves, why did it fail? Well, likely it failed because the northwest corner, the SPA was left in there. And it'll be incumbent upon the council to remove it, keep in this additional language, and bring it back to the voters. So, having said all that, I suggest that we get beyond this, we let the voters decide, and I'm confident that the voters will find the best way forward, and we'll just move on. So having said that, I'll open it up to the council for your comments and questions and suggestions.
I have a comment and a question. So I haven't been secretive about this, in that when I was president of the Cave Creek Museum, I was invited to walk the property by the owner. He was a history buff, and he had frequented the museum, and so he invited me out a few years ago, walked the property. And what was very unique about the property is that looking at it, you can't build on every single square foot of that property. First of all, along Tom Darlington, there are boulders up and down Tom Darlington on that property to where it would have to be set back significantly. Secondly, there is a significant size wash / canal that runs through that property in the kind of the southwest corner of it. So you're a bit limited, and the revised map, Matt, if you can pull that up, the 16 acres, that we are now more or less protecting the residents on Langwood Lane from any building there or access to the property on Langwood, correct, with the revision? Okay, so additional protections there on top of what we had already had to where we are limiting that traffic to Tom Darlington and Carefree Highway now, correct?
Yeah, just for the benefit of everyone, the green was the original outline that you see there. The red is now the 3 parcels that would be preserved.
Okay, so we have additional safeguards in place in addition to the Citizen Advisory Committee that we had talked about to review and the additional outreach to the residents around the community. So going beyond the standard 500 feet and the additional press and the additional outreach being done. Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make a few comments. What we've heard today is a long list of safeguards that will help a proposed project be sympathetic to the site and to the neighbors. The overarching requirement for a robust native and plant flora buffer between Tom Darlington and the buildings, and also screening the parking is a major addition in my mind. The native plant requirement lends to the open space look, and importantly, it continues the continuity of the surrounding landscape. Hopefully, when we have an architect involved, they will have had past involvement with either the Hermosa Inn or the Ambient Landscape Hotel in Sedona. I think everybody should Google ambientsedona.com. The ambient is made up of many individual structures that are in and amongst the native trees that are there, mostly juniper. So these buildings just slightly rise above the native plant flora. So it's a very, they work together very, very well. And I think that hotel is a great example of the union of the architecture and the native plant material. So, so the subtle union of architecture and plant palette is, I think it will become an artistic gateway experience. Now, on the other hand, if developed as a residential property, due to traffic noise and adjacent commercial development, these homes could be entry-level custom homes. Often these homes, home buyers are new to the area, unaware of the value of the natural desert. So often, out goes the host plants and in comes a tidy layer of reflective rock. This is not a gateway experience. So I really think that the spa, under the constraints that we've heard today, is a very good solution.
Other comments from council?
Yes, Matt, thank you, very nice presentation. I just have two comments here. One is in reference to, it was at the bottom of page 37 that we pulled out, and it talks about the applicant shall design and maintain a project web page. My concern on that, what I thought of when I heard that was, all right, he's going to put it together and then do it once and that's it. I think we should state that it should be something that would, and perhaps Clint, you could identify some parameters where it is, when significant things are done, that the site is updated periodically, whether it's a specific project that's done or a time frame. So it's an ongoing website that's increasing in its completion, so people can see it on the website as it's being built, and it's all up to date. That's my point. So it's not, an old website. Thank you.
Go ahead.
We're happy to refine that if desired. I would say that the language, the applicant shall design and maintain a project website, that maintain aspect was intended to make sure that it's continuously updated. But if we feel that we want something more clear, we're obviously happy.
Well, it could just be interpreted by the individual. I'll maintain it, when I feel like it, kind of thing, versus, all right, they want specific timeframes or specific aspects of the construction project. Just so it's a little more, but I think it's a great idea.
I mean, it could be as simple as the applicant shall design, maintain, the applicant shall design and maintain a current project website.
Something, yeah.
That'll probably get us.
It's not, the website gets stale, if you will. And that was it. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Johnson.
Matt, I have a simple question. We've gone from 5 to 3 parcels. Does that mean that the 2 remaining parcels can be built as homes? They remain in the rural zoning that exists, right?
Correct. Good question.
And they can't be rezoned to commercial, correct?
Any parcel in town can be rezoned, but they would preserve the very low density residential designation, and thus they would only be allowed to a residential zoning. So if anyone were to propose something else, they'd have to amend the general plan.
So if somebody came in and they wanted to build a business on those two parcels, they have to go through a pretty brutal process. it
They'd have
sounds
to
like.
go through a major general plan amendment, go through a 60-day review process, a super majority of the council, and then still get the rezone approved as well.
And just one more question. To the extent the spa that we were looking at, the casita style, is this, in your opinion, is the 16 acres enough for somebody to build something in there?
I guess the short answer is maybe too much information. My wife and I, we enjoy the Hermosa Inn. We spend our anniversaries there every year, and so we're very familiar with that property, and that property fits on that size parcel. So I would say if that's what everyone's visualizing, those 3 parcels would be enough.
Okay, thank you.
Other council members?
Just, I was, after listening to the last meeting, comments at the last meeting, you know, getting community together to have a seat at the table was important to me, and working with Stacy and Matt and John to make sure that happens is what my main focus was, and I feel that we have achieved that.
I have just a couple of items that I'll turn over to the council members. So on page 80, page 80, actions, so I would just suggest on SCA-H that the town will form, I suggest we change that to the town shall form. And this has to do with the public, it's not on the page here, maybe it is. So it has to do with the public participation, the citizen participation ordinance. And then also, then moving on to page 37, paragraph 2, where the last line there, excluding prototypical. So that may be subject to misinterpretation. So I would suggest that a red sentence read, design guidelines specific to the development shall be included with any rezone application, period. Prototypical and/or commercially branded architecture is not permitted. So more clear, a little bit more forceful. Okay, Councilman Hatcher.
Just a general comment. I think a lot of these new guidelines that we put into the plan here are what the community as a whole has been looking for. I'm not quite sure what else we could add to this to control it. I do have a concern, as Clint brought up, that if we don't have specific guidelines and structure to this, that there could be some things that go in there that are not appropriate, and we would all be unhappy with us with that. But I think in reading through all this, I'm not quite sure what else anyone could do to control the guidelines and the construction and the appearance and usage of this property. I don't know what else we could do. Thank you.
Anything else? So hearing no other comments, we'll open it up to public comment. So this is an opportunity for those who wish to speak on this subject. So please come up, state your name, and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. So first up is Mr. Art Vivas.
Have me make sure that we get the times right.
Gotta get it.
Of course, when you want to find it, you can't. Well, I'm going to have to work from memory. At the last meeting, I was cut off surprisingly after 1 minute 33 seconds. So tonight I'll speed read. I want to begin by talking about the changes that you've put in. I still don't see how they will protect the land, the flora, the fauna, the wildlife corridors. It will prevent building when we shouldn't build. I also am concerned with some of the points behind the revenue issue. I don't see the revenue as the issue here. I think that that is kind of the thing that Councilor Delicio recently brought up in a Carefree Unity letter on June 22nd, that we can't predict the revenue needs we'll have. By the same token, I don't think that we really can predict the expenses we'll have. If we watch the spending we have for things like consultants, for new town hall plans, extra salaries for the town employees, many of whom are non-residents, I think we can save a lot of money. We also can't predict where the economy is going to be going. We can have an economic depression or an expansion internationally or nationally. So we don't know where we'll be in a number of years, and we've had different numbers of years thrown around. When we heard the economic forecast by Mr. Burns. So I think that we need to take into consideration that no one can really predict the future. And until we kind of accept that premise, we can continue to worry about revenues, where we're going to get them, where they'll be, where they won't be. And instead, we should focus on where we are now. And putting that spa in will not protect the town. The idea that that spa will earn the revenue we need is possibly a white elephant. It possibly will just turn into something the transients will stay in and not be successful. No different than El Pedregal and many of the businesses across the street where Ace is now moving into at Terra Vida. Unfortunately, I don't have my prepared statement. If I can get a second chance, I'll come up again. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Stuart Skirty.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Mayor, Council, Stuart Skirty, I'm a Carefree resident. Up until now, I've sat back quietly, listened carefully, investigated the reasoning and arguments from both sides, and analyzed whether we should remove the SPA from the general plan or let it remain. My conclusion is that the SPA should remain in the general plan. I'm happy to debate the arguments for and against with anyone who wants to engage me. I'm at the post office almost every day passing out voter information. That said, and after reading the proposed changes to the general plan that came out earlier this week that we've talked about today, that address the concerns of those in favor of removing the spa, I conclude this is a reasonable, good faith solution to the divide we've been experiencing on the issue. To simplify my statement, this is a compromise between two sides that live under the same roof and must somehow find a way to work with each other. A War of the Roses does not benefit anyone in Carefree or the town of Carefree. Not unlike a marriage, we all have experienced disagreements, lost some faith in each other in some fashion, done our share of arguing, and have given each other the silent treatment. As a side note, I'm sad to say, this issue has impacted my and Colleen's relationship with people on the other side who we consider friends. I hope when it's resolved, we can be friends again. In a marriage, divorce is always the solution of last resort. In a town, divorce is not an option. Like in our marriages, both sides eventually realize there must be some give and take to come to a resolution that we both can live with. I believe the proposed changes are that compromise. I urge the council and the mayor to adopt the changes to the general plan and put this to the voters of Carefree for adoption in November. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rick Kaminsky.
Thank you very much. My name is Rick Kazmiski. I live in Ridgeview Place in Carefree. I want to say thank you to Matt and Stacy for the inordinate amount of time you've put into wordsmithing this, and for you guys for all of the efforts you've put in to dial it down even tighter so that any potential future...
Mr. Kaminsky,
yes.
Can you speak into the mic a
Oh,
little?
yes, thank you. Is that better?
Yeah.
I just want to thank you guys for attempting to put in the words and dial it down even tighter so any potential person coming and wanting to develop on that land not only will they have to adhere to a very, very strict set of requirements, they'll also have to go through a very, very robust engagement with the community. So thank you for doing that. I'm all for this. I was before. I think it makes sense. Someday it's going to be developed. It may take 10 years for that to happen. Who knows? But what's being developed there as far as the words and the restrictions on it is tremendous. Hermosa Inn, I love the Hermosa Inn, and I have never been to the other one, but I'll look that one up. But I just want to say thank you for all of your efforts, and thank you to all the citizens for being involved. This is an amazing process. I'm all for this. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Janet Vivas.
Janet Vivas, 100 Easy Street, Carefree. I'm aware of the revisions of the bullets, the conditions that you're talking about on page 27. However, it's important for me to explain how the original bullets evolved. At the Junetown meeting, we heard from an abutter on the dead-end While Away attempt to torpedo a 3-year effort by countless residents to remove the offensive spa on the northwest corner. He proudly took credit for authoring the original self-serving 9 conditions enshrined in the general plan, detailing what a few While Away residents would accept in the spa. Note too that I am an abutter. In a private meeting with the economic director, or ED, they hatched the spa parameters for the entire town, with the ED promising, quote, a blood oath, unquote, to maintain these conditions in the GP. The abutter further suggested the spa would mirror the upscale Hermosa Inn, but it has 43 rooms. The spa will mass structures up to 190 rooms, twice the size of the Hampton. No Hermosa Inn, but definitely a step toward turning Carefree into a resort row, a place for transients. Carefree's traffic engineer should be looking into opening up While Away's dead end onto Carefree Highway to relieve the traffic congestion and cut through Stagecoach, Langwood, and Leisure will suffer. But I doubt anyone has thought that far ahead in their rush to ensure that the spa passes. The ED and others who have pandered to the While Away select is an example of why residents question the town's lack of transparency. Councilor Amoroso, Amoroso stated she never heard complaints from While Away. Well, now you know why. Given their big win as the sole beneficiaries dictating their conditions, although they are far from the only street affected by the spa. We are all aware of the recent unfortunate structures the town continues to adopt, with a discount Hampton as our centerpiece. So attracting a high-end construction is unlikely, as developers could correctly assume this town will tolerate just about anything. I engaged in all the GP workshops after repeatedly being told that it was resident-driven, though in reality, the GP was driven by staff and town officials. Otherwise, the spa would have been removed so everyone could engage, not just a few on While Away, out of a population of approximately 3,600. Residents' prodigious written and verbal appeals to remove the spa and start over are too great a request. I'm disappointed I invested my time in a sham process, but I will be engaged and voting for the local candidates promising fresh ideas that support residents' transparency, spa removal, integrity,
Please,
and limiting the
time
real
is up,
prospect
please.
of becoming a resort road.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Colleen Rose Skirty.
Colleen Rose Skirty, Carefree resident. I want to thank you guys actually for all this work that you guys have done. There's been much discussion on the special planning area for the northwest corner of Tom Darlington and Carefree Highway. I am in favor of keeping the SPA for the following reasons. I have read the full 68-page agreement. It's very specific on what can and cannot be built. I have toured the area in question and walked the property. I've met with the neighbors who directly border this property, and after much discussion with each other, they created an SPA that they're very happy with. In fact, this is the development they would like to see on that property, especially with these new revisions that you've proposed this evening. For those that say they want to be part of the process, and I agree they should, they will be. They can be as involved as they want once a developer comes forward with a plan, if they ever do. If the SPA process were to be redone, I don't believe it would be as specific as it currently is. There would be more opportunities for other commercial projects that the closest residents and the neighbors do not want. We have the most control with the current SPA that is in place, especially with these new additions. Why are some residents so insistent that the SP must be removed from the general plan? They say the reason is because of the lack of transparency and more public input is needed. But there was almost 2 years of public input and discussions before the SPA was finalized. More importantly, there will be many more public opportunities before any developer can build anything under the current SPA. It would need to go through a zoning change with planning and zoning and the town council. With the additional wording the council has proposed tonight to add to the general plan, along with the rezoning process, there will be many opportunities that will include public input. Because the current SPA is so specific, I have asked those who say they want more input, what would they remove from the current SPA? What would they add? They cannot answer the question. They just say that we need to start the process over. But why start a process over if there is nothing you would change? Honestly, I think there are those who want nothing built on that corner. They say otherwise, but their answers don't make sense. Remember, this property is owned by an individual, just like you, who has private property rights. Would any of us like to be told what we could or could not do with our own property? I don't think so. As a resident, it's our job to do research for things impacting our town and then make the best decision based on our values. We should not let any one group or person tell us what is best for our town. I ask that you vote in favor of keeping the SPA in the plan and let the voters decide in November. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Miriam,
Can I say one thing? I just want to remind everybody that our policy going forward is do not state your personal address, just that you're a Carefree resident.
okay,
Remember that?
Yeah,
So,
but it's okay. If they write it down or if we know the residence is good. Okay, Ms. Arian Buser.
Hello, Ariane Buser, Carefree resident. I actually didn't really have anything prepared, and I apologize for being late to the meeting, but after reviewing the proposed additions to the language, I believe that this actually is a great compromise. I know that trust has been a really big hot ticket item around the spa, and I think there were some poor decisions made by the previous administration, which is how we ended up with the Hampton Inn and these Town View condos. So I think what I've seen here today, I see you trying to make an effort to restore that trust and really making sure that residents who feel like they may have been overlooked during those previous projects, you are going above and beyond to really make it adamant that the residents have to be involved. They need to be involved from the very beginning. We want to see the design by a proposed developer and really putting in, I believe, the necessary stages along the way to make sure that everyone in the resident community is fine with what is going to be probably eventually developed over on that corner. And we don't know when that may happen. It may happen in 10 years' time, we don't know. But at that point, we may have a completely different town council. And if we don't have some sort of restrictions and we do have to start over from the beginning, then we may not get this kind of clear language that is very specific in terms of what we will and will not allow to be built on that corner, which I think all of us are very concerned with. None of us want another Hampton Inn at all. I think it's horrid and we don't want that. So I think we're trying to restore that trust, and I appreciate the effort. And one question I did have for Matt actually is that if we did have to restart the process, would they have to follow any sort of restrictions if there's no language around the spa?
And when you say restart the process,
So getting rid of the spa, right, and people want to restart the process, but if we do that, what sort of restrictions would people be going off of at that time?
well, in that essence, it's a little complex in that the spa exists in the current general plan. So if we were to move forward with this general plan and the spa in, but the public did not approve that, then we would be in essence, stuck with the general plan you have. So in essence, you would have what the general plan says, which is.
Just those 9 points,
those
which
9
is not
points.
very restrictive. Honestly, in my opinion, they're a little loosey-goosey. So that's why when I see this additional level of detail, that gives me like the warm and fuzzy feeling that we are putting some pretty severe guardrails around what can be developed. So, okay, thank you for that. I was just kind of curious. And yeah, I think either way, if you do pass, then yeah, it will go back to the voters and then they can make the ultimate decision. But I think having this sort of language in there and really imparting upon the residents that we will have involvement is what
Time
we
is
want.
up. Thank you. Okay, Miss Susan Winterstein. Oh.
Good evening. Thank you, Council. I have a question, so I hope that's allowed. Is that right? Okay. One of the things that we've talked a lot about in developing the property is, I've heard quite a few times, a casita-style property. Well, what does that mean exactly? What does that look like? Is there something that you could give us an example of? And I'll tell you why, because the Hermosa Inn has been around. It's an iconic property. It's grown with Phoenix. I'm very, very familiar with it. And it's very unique. And it really doesn't look anything like the property that we would develop. Not to mention that it would cost somebody, a developer, a lot of money, millions and millions of dollars to come in and build something like that. So really familiar with it, but makes me nervous when, of course, we have Hampton Inn, somebody else had mentioned prior this evening. I think people are nervous about what that looks like. So number one, what does it look like? And do we have any recourse if we have a La Quinta that is planned? And we don't want that. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm just trying to make a point.
Okay. So you can speak to it. If I can speak to it.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Maybe I'll just start and please add if I've missed something. But actually, I think this language speaks to creating something unique versus creating something. We have this language that says prototypical. And so when you say La Quinta, what we heard and we were trying really hard to respond to is not another Hampton. And so getting to your question first is that you say you're asking what is this casita style resort. Just bear in mind the way that the language reads is that it's, again, a suggestion. But I think that we are looking to it as Hermosa Inn-esque. You're right, it's been around for a while. But
Over
it's that,
70 years.
Yes, but it's that idea of those sort of separate versus a hotel where all the rooms are sort of under one roof.
Mhm.
It's sort of these separate casita style. Casitas, literally.
Like the boulders?
And thank you, I was just gonna get just like the boulders. So it's the idea of the boulders, it's the idea of Hermosa, which is older. Councilmember Miller mentioned ambient, and that's a really great, in my opinion, as a planner, development to take a look at. It's all about these, again, these separate casitas, casita guest home, whatever word you want to use, nestled into the landscape versus the hotel or the hotel or the structure dominating the landscape. So I don't know if I've answered that as to your satisfaction, but I think, again, as the mayor pointed out initially and as Matt presented, we heard two significant items from the last public hearing. We did not want to see another Hampton Inn, and the public wanted a seat at the table. They wanted to be a part of the development of that process. So to answer the question as to another Hampton, that, in my opinion and Matt's opinion, is that that's what this language is speaking to. It's going to be a custom, it's going to be unique. I think, again, Councilmember Miller, it's not going to be something that just can be set, that we see sometimes just sitting on a typical parcel. It'll be designed, it'll be uniquely designed by a professional architect with, and not.
Okay, so not the boutique hotel that they had sort of, that, I mean, I think that got us in trouble last time when they used the word boutique, and I think a lot of people wouldn't call it boutique.
To pile on, Stacy did an excellent job of zeroing in on, while we have that low-profile casita-style resort, we recognize just your question, that does that get us all the way there?
Right.
And so that's where I wanted to go to this page 37, because the public involvement process and having residents have a seat at the table was our way of, we're never going to be able to explicitly explain that casita-style resort until we start to see a proposed plan, right? And so in order to combat that uncertainty, that's where we started to build in this public outreach component, where there's more neighborhood meetings and there's a formal committee, because that's where we can hear, hey, that's not what we were expecting. You have to do better. Go try again.
And so there is that
So
ability.
we've built in that citizen participation plan is going to include these additional meetings, and then we go on to, as an action item, say we're going to have a stakeholder advisory committee, and then they're going to provide their recommendations. Basically, they would be the first step in the process. Once you go through that committee, then that recommendation from that committee goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission, that then forms a recommendation to the council, that then would make the final determination on the zoning. So it all is intended to try and add layers, checks and balances, and the residents are at the forefront of that.
And so I hear that that's a different process than what happened with the Hampton. Is that
It's
right?
it's a more robust process than the town currently has. Correct.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Diane Roth.
Diane Roth. Now, I'm a resident of the Boulders and went through the really happy water tank experience where we had engagement. We had people come to the HOA. We ended up suing the town. But we were promised a landscaped underground water tank. We were shown beautiful pictures of that. That's what we were promised many times by the water company and the town. We got a fort instead. You say we were not engaged about the Hampton Inn, that you had meetings. You brought up Sedona. The Hampton Inn in Sedona is beautiful. How did we get the Hampton Inn we got? So you're asking us to suspend belief and jump off a cliff and hope the water's deep enough. So I'm going to speak very clearly so I am not misquoted again. During the last 18 months, it's been like Groundhog Day, the movie. The only difference being Bill Murray learned every day and he grew and things got better. We have attended every meeting, every workshop. We have fulfilled every obligation required to make our general plan a citizen-driven document. Even Matt said our percentages were higher than Phoenix. We were very clear about our priorities and our thoughts on the future direction of our town. We have not failed. You have failed us. Your job was to listen to our input and to form a general plan from what we told you we wanted and what we felt was best for us. Instead, you are lecturing us and assuring us that you have modified the SPA, which we don't want. We are not children. We are all well-educated. Our average age is 69, so we've lived through a lot. So what we wanted was for you to listen. You have repeatedly made remarks about we gave you opportunities. We took those opportunities. You have said you were transparent. No, you weren't according to us, but say you were. So if you are transparent and have truly listened, why are you not doing what we have obviously made sure you understand is our will? This is a citizen-driven plan. It is supposed to reflect what the citizens want for the next 10 years. That's what we asked you to listen to. I don't understand how, other than hiring a plane to skywrite over this town council what we want. Why you
Time
have
is
not
up.
heard
Ms.
us.
Roth,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Barbara Hess.
Hi, Council. I'm Barbara Hess, Carefree resident. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I did. Can you hear me? Because you're squinting.
Oh, I've
Okay.
always, I
Oh,
just want to
okay.
hear better. I can hear you, though.
I wanted to say thank you for putting in the extra provisions. I know, I agree with Diane, I honestly do. But we're here, this is where we are, the spa is gonna stay in. We have done a lot of really great work on the general plan, and thank you, Matt, you were instrumental. And I just want, I agree with them, but I will vote for the general plan. I will vote yes. I'm sure you guys are all going to vote yes tonight, and I appreciate the extra wording that went in there. My question is this citizen-driven committee for just this SPA or for any project that comes in?
Well, oh, you can answer, but.
Mayor, I'm happy if you'd like to answer,
Well,
but
I can answer it. So it would be just for this SPA. So someone comes forward with a zoning change request, the committee will be formed to address it. Someone comes in, say, a year from now for a storage unit in the corner of Bloody Basin and Cave Creek Road. Well, probably the membership of that, those who have an interest in participating are probably different. And so the committee would be formed, they'd serve their purpose, and then when it's over, they would disband.
Okay, no, that's fine, but this will be an ongoing thing where the citizens can participate in the active process of how it goes through the approval, the P&Z, and you guys. And it would be like a town hall kind of thing, as opposed to you guys are on the dais and we're just asking questions and you're not engaging?
Well, it would be like the sign discussion.
Okay.
It'd be modeled after that. So
Okay.
it's not us sitting up here with people coming up and talking to us.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Mayor,
Anything to add, go right ahead.
I would, please, if I could just clarify, is that I think the idea was behind specifically trying to address the engagement of people within a process from the start to finish versus, as you had pointed out, and I agree, that it does feel like things would happen and it would just come in front of, sort of a standard meeting. But I do believe that the general plan is actually looking to provide for more than just the special planning area, just the northwest corner. Because as this kind of goal reads, I think we're looking for, and it depends upon, and I think it's the mayor's alluding to, when we have an interest or development application in front of us. And so while it was, I think, crafted specifically for that SPA, it does talk about anything in the town center that might come forward, or any other SPA. I don't foresee SPA, at least in my tenure here, but you never know. In 10, 20, maybe there's 30 years, there's another special planning area. But my point being is that it's trying to address significant development in the town. And so the goal is actually written to address not just the northwest corner, but for significant projects in
It
town.
would apply to the northeast corner when that comes about, too, correct?
It can. It can.
It can? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Peter Budnick.
Thank you. Peter Budnick, Carefree resident, longtime resident here. I've followed this spa issue since it started. I attended 2 meetings, not sure why other people who claimed there wasn't a process didn't attend those. There were plenty, I thought. I've supported the spa from the beginning. I think I'm like a lot of the silent majority here in Carefree. We don't show up at these meetings. We elected you by majority to represent us here. And I encourage you to listen to our input, but you know more than we do about all of this, I'm sure, and the legalities and so forth. And we trust you, at least I do. Again, a lot of people have put in a lot of great input, and you've responded far well above, I think, the call of duty here. Speaking of majority, there are people claiming that they represent a majority by not wanting that spa. I don't believe that's true. The next election, maybe we'll learn more about a new majority, but for now, you are the majority, and I'm hoping and trusting you're gonna do the right thing for the town's fiscal future. I'd love to see open space everywhere. We all would. But if we think it's expensive to run the town now, wait until we try and run it with all open space, because we have to buy that open space and then manage that open space. That is not realistic. Development is how we pay for our town. If we don't want a sales tax, if we don't want a property tax, we must have more sales tax. This is, I believe, a responsible path towards additional sales tax. So I support the SPA and encourage you to vote yes tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Charles Marsh.
Thank you. The last time I spoke, I mentioned that I was going to take responsibility for the fact that for quite a while, 18 years we've had our house, that it was my problem that I didn't pay attention to what was going on. Like a lot of people, we woke up and we had an ugly hotel, an ugly condo, an ugly water plant, and an ugly property tax proposal. So the work of Matt, the mayor, et cetera, and all the citizens that really got lit up about this, the reason that all happened was because, to the mayor's point, where the hell was the trust? Now, how we recoup the trust, provided we have, is been this process. And so I just review the fact that in all those things, especially the property tax proposal, how does somebody feel if you're a company or you're running a sports team when you lose 80-20? So what I'd have to say is we need fresh views on this council, because this, whatever you did, it's why we lost trust, and it's why we're here. And thank you, Matt and the mayor, for making big progress. But the big progress is we need new blood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. John Trainer.
Good evening, Mayor Crane, members of the council, staff, residents here and at home. I had an opening planned for this evening, and you guys kind of screwed that up. It was really a tricky wordplay. The letter Y has an interesting background. The word Y has an interesting background. And I have a whole thing that I'll still play out some other time about that. Anyway, Mayor Crane, I think you showed incredible leadership during this process. It was not easy. We made it difficult on all of you because you all told us it was our plan. And when we didn't hear what we thought we wanted, we gave you a hard time. And because you've come to this compromise, which I actually have to admit is a well thought out compromise, that doesn't mean it won't happen again, just to set the record straight. We are not going away. We don't represent the 80%. We represent residents that care about Carefree. They may or may not be part of that 80%. They worried about it last time because it was a pocketbook issue. We're not stupid, we understand that. And the people that accuse us of representing 80% of the people are the ones that are a little challenged mentally. Anyway, I want to thank Colleen for her stump speech. That was awesome. I do want to honestly congratulate Matt. You did a phenomenal job. How you have the patience of Job here is unbelievable. You've listened to both sides. You've tried to address the concerns of both sides. You did it with incredible patience and humility. You never came on pushy like most consultants, and I did some consulting, so I know. But I want to say thank you to all of you that contributed to this discussion this evening. And whichever way the vote goes, but I think we all know which way it's going at this point, it does come down to the residents deciding. And I guess in November, they'll get the opportunity. And whether it's 80% or 61% or 51%, they have spoken at that point, and we'll have to accept that answer. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, John. Ms. Deborah Shannon.
Good evening, Mayor Crane and council members. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Crane and council members. I'm Deborah Shannon, resident of Carefree since 2004. I'm addressing the council about the Carefree General Plan being put back on the agenda this evening after it failed the supermajority vote just at last town meeting on June 4th. I would like to address the edits that are being proposed to the plan for reconsideration. I would also like to comment that these proposals have not had the community engagement and consideration for the vote tonight. While there have been really good revisions, but we still need to address one specific proposed edit on page 25 regarding 2 unique spas and the SCA quote, and I want to quote part of it, that each spa shall require enhanced planning and community engagement in order to protect adjacent uses and meet the goals of this document. I would like to address that in this proposal. The verbiage states that each spa, and actually I put shall, but it does say may, which doesn't require it in the original proposal. Shall require enhanced planning and community engagement. This verbiage does not guarantee that the recommendations of the enhanced planning and community engagement will still not be overridden after all is said and done and the community voices once again disregarded. This seems to be a blatant disregard for the community input that has already been given to date and disregarded by some council members for the community input, sorry, I lost my train, by the council members in the Planning and Zoning Committee, who after hearing the recommendations of the consulting firm and community engagement input, still voted against the community voices. These proposed edits seem to be a play on words to try to get opposing council members to reconsider to force the general plan to go to vote in November 2024. Can you answer how to make sure this doesn't happen again? I also attended the candidates meeting, and one of the main concerns addressed that evening was communication and trust and how this was creating division within such a small community. It was further emphasized how we need council members who listen to and uphold community opinion and not put their own opinion first. Again, it seems that we have council members who are trying to ramrod this Carefree General Plan to the November election, disregarding community voices. This plan needs all the attention now before it's sent to the community to make sure it's right and reflects what the community wants. We have our Carefree Town Council election at the end of this month, and something as important as this is, this vote should be postponed until the new council members are chosen.
Time is up, Shannon.
Thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
So Matt, a comment was made about on page 25, some of the words which should read shall, do not read shall. I believe they say shall at least a couple of times on page 25. Yeah. So just double check, make sure we haven't missed anything.
Yeah, I guess what we would move forward with is what are on these slides, because we're in a public setting, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but this would be the record that we have to fall back on if there's any disagreement. So it would be what is worded on these slides and/or any motion that was made. So I see shall as well. So
okay, we're good there. Okay, thank you. Mr. Anton Wilkie.
Hello, I'm Anton Wilkie. I live in the North Boulders.
Speak up, Anton, please.
Okay, sorry, I have to get closer, I guess, because I don't know how to speak up. I live in the Boulders. I've been a resident since 2009. I had a prepared speech. It doesn't make much sense at this point, so won't read it. I want to thank everyone for the work they did. I supported the general plan. Actually, I supported the general plan we currently have. I supported the general plan at all stages through this. I support the SPA before. I still support the SPA. I think that the things that are being added, I'm not as big a fan of citizens advisory groups as everybody here is, because you are the ones we elected. We each represent one vote, not as many as you do. But I'm happy to participate when I can and give my opinion. I do think that the work you all did to come up with a compromise was really positive. It's still a good plan. And I find it hard to see why people are opposed at this point. At the last meeting, what I heard was that you were being asked to keep in the 9 elements and take out the general plan, the SPA from the general plan. But if you leave in the 9 elements, that defines the SPA. So at that point, I think we'd gotten to a point where the other side had moved their position to where they were asking for something that was no longer logically coherent. At this point, with the language you have in, if you took out the language SPA and called it something else, you still wouldn't have to amend the general plan to build it, because it defines everything that a SPA would define. And everyone agreed on that point, except for the conclusion I just reached last month. I really encourage everyone to get behind this plan. I think it's a very good effort, and I will support it, and I encourage you to vote to put it on the ballot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mike Braun.
I'm not sure. I always like following Anton. I've known him too long. My name is Mike Braun. First of all, Mayor, I'd like to thank you for the openness and the transparency that you have, I won't say forced upon the council, but have provided the council with. And that is very, very different than we've had in the past, and we appreciate that very much. Matt, you have the patience of Job. I don't know how you could put up with all of us nitpicking your words, etc. I was against I was asking that the SBA be removed. But with all the changes that the council members, etc., have worked on, and with Matt and Stacy working on those things, I think that you have come up with a compromise, and I will support that compromise. And that's because I have learned to trust the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Carrie Johnson.
Carrie Johnson, Carefree resident. You can call me skeptical, but I believe that the SPA for the Northwest Corner designation should be removed from the general plan. It's not a matter of whether our town needs tax revenue, of course we do. The point I want to make is that the plan amendment should not have gone to vote in December of 21 during the COVID pandemic. I was not fully engaged in the town politics at that time, so I have been researching online, reading and listening to all sides of the debate, and asking a lot of questions. I watched the 3.5-hour December 7th of 21 town council meeting when the amendment was approved. As you all know, the meeting was held over Zoom during a worldwide pandemic. It's not a secret that the majority of Carefree residents are older adults. This is the demographic that was most concerned about dying from COVID, and most likely were not focused on a plan amendment for something that they may not have even been alive to worry about. On top of that, the meeting was held over Zoom, a computer program that was just becoming a household term, and many people may not have been familiar with it. I used to teach senior computer classes. I know the frustration many of my students experience just learning basic computer skills and programs. If you watch that recorded meeting, you will also see that even the town council and staff had technical difficulties with the Zoom meeting. But there were still 8 residents that made public comments. They were all very well thought out comments. I applaud those individuals for making it a priority to follow the bouncing ball and fight for the future of their beloved town during that awful time. Of those 8 comments, 7 were against the amendment at that time. So why did the town council unanimously vote yes to the amendment? Why bother having a public comment when it seems that the council had already made up their minds? Was it just to check off another legal box? And why did the amendment have to be made then, during a worldwide pandemic, under the circumstances I just gave? Maybe because it was an opportune time with little resistance? That is not the representation I expect from my town council. Today, the council is made up of 5 of the same people. And after 1.5 years and many, many hours of public input, I have still not seen full representation of the residents on this issue. The town administration did great in justifying why they supported the SPA amendment, but they are not the decision makers for our town, nor does the council report to the town administration. It's the other way around. The administration reports to the mayor and council, who should be supporting the residents and what the residents want. Before you vote tonight, I ask that you consider what I have said and do the right thing. Vote to have the SPA designation on the northwest corner removed from the general plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I have no additional slips. Have I missed anyone? You have to please fill out a slip. Okay, Ms. Nakisa Asazi.
Azizi.
Azizi. There you go.
All right. Good afternoon, council. I just want to say, I don't think we should treat commercial development of the northwest corner as a foregone conclusion. That being said, as it stands, there's already a spa in the general plan that lacks the protections proposed by the mayor. And being that only 3 of the candidates running for town council in the current election cycle have consistently opposed the spa, there's no guarantee that those in office next year will support its removal, meaning a failure to adopt the reference guardrails could leave residents in a worse position in 2025 than we're in now. All the same, it's disappointing that the concerns of residents have continued to fall on all but deaf ears. From the outset, Carefree residents have been loud and clear that they oppose a spa on the northwest corner of Tom Darlington and Carefree Highway. Indeed, on December 7th, 2021, a majority of those engaged, expressed concerns about the, quote, irreversible impact development on that corner would have on the beauty of our town, and questioned why a more commercially viable corner like that on Carefree Highway and Cave Creek Road wouldn't be a more sensible alternative. Notwithstanding this collective apprehension on the part of the residents, the council voted unanimously to make a major amendment to the general plan that added the current spa to the northwest corner. Since then, the town of Carefree has been even more outspoken about their opposition to this designation. Yet some on the council and in this race for one of the 3 open seats they're on believe they know better. Contrary to a recent misrepresentation by one of the proponents of the spa, who also happens to be running against me for town council, I do not oppose, quote, any development in our town. Like most residents, I believe Carefree has a significant amount of untapped potential, particularly within the town center. What I do oppose, however, as did the founders of this town, is, quote, needless destruction of the desert and a general disregard for the will of the people. Disappointingly, at the last council meeting, Mayor Crane, despite his heroic efforts, was unable to secure so much as a motion, let alone the supermajority necessary to approve a version of the general plan that removes the controversial spa designation from the northwest corner. In light of the recalcitrance of some of his colleagues to defer to their constituents, I appreciate the mayor's efforts to find a middle ground that places additional restrictions on the commercial use of the northwest corner than exist under the current plan. But I hope the next council understands that representative government means representation of the people and not private interests. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that's our last speaker, so this closes the public comment portion of this discussion. So now it comes back to the council, and the council can discuss further, and then we'll try to entertain a motion. Mr. Hatcher, I think you have something?
I have yes, a question for Dennis, if I may. There are a couple topics brought up tonight that are not directly related to the spa. May I comment on that for clarity, on those two issues?
What topics?
One was in reference
Is
to
it
the,
related to general plan?
no. Just,
Not related to general
not to the
plan,
spa, the general plan directly. No, that's correct. No? Okay. Thank you.
I think it's important to know that doing nothing does not preclude a development on that property. The owner of that land, who can do whatever he wants with it, he could sell it to whoever he wants, can put homes on that property. And as was stated by my fellow council member here, Clint Miller, who is a professional architect, what could likely end up on that property if it stays residential is entry-level custom, semi-custom homes, which may not be pretty. And not having a commercial designation on it does not benefit the town in terms of a retail sales tax base. So again, having the spa in and offering the opportunity for some type of commercial development will benefit the town and will allow for tighter controls on what goes on that property. So remember, the 9 points and the revisions and the citizen advisory, that's all included. But doing nothing will be worse. And we have to consider that as well. So doing nothing means that this does not go to a public vote. Regardless of whether we're a supermajority, 6-1, 5-2, whatever it is, it would then go to you, to the public, to decide what happens. And that's what we want. We want you to decide. And by us taking our recommendations and putting them together and putting this on the November ballot empowers you to decide what happens.
Other comments from council?
Yeah, I have one more.
Go right ahead.
Real quick. I just want to bring clarity that the one issue does relate to the spa, and that is the town is not in any way being dependent on the future revenue of that piece of land in the northwest corner with respect to the bringing financial and fiscal support to the town. I mean, it's out there down the road, but our goal is to do other types of projects with the northeast corner and inter-town development to ensure the sales tax revenue is there to support the town. So we're not, I just want to clarify that we are not relying on that piece of land to keep us afloat financially. So you all know. Thank you.
Councilman Johnson?
Yeah, I just want to say I was one of the people that led the rezoning of the northeast corner, so I'm intimately familiar with what can and can't be built there. And that was a process. And what my hope is given all of the effort that was put into the northwest corner, that we give the same kind of quarter, if you will, to the residents in what gets built on the northeast corner. Because I know a lot of people think of it as the money corner. I've heard that. But respectfully, I ask that we give these people the same consideration.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, so before we take a motion or ask for a motion, just to throw in my 2 cents worth. To me, the key part of this is the greater opportunities for public input, for awareness, participation, and influence. And I think we've baked that in, and that will keep us on a good course. So I hear the concerns, I hear the anxiety, the worries about bad outcomes, and we have tools in place, multiple tools that should keep us on a good course. And That's the best, probably the best that we can do, and give you a chance to vote on it, just like Councilman Delicio said. So if you think it's a good thing, you vote yes. If you think you think the SBA should be out, then you vote no. Simple. Okay, so thank you. And before we wrap it up and we go to a motion, thank you, Matt, no matter how this, thank you for that. Good job. And thank you to the residents. So 19 months, a lot of work, and we have, in my mind, arrived at a very good place. In times I wasn't so sure where we were going. I'm very pleased with it. Okay, so having said that, I would entertain a motion to approve the general plan update along with those 3 corrections that were noted through the course of discussion.
Let's go through those, so we're all on the same.
Okay, and I will list those. On page 37, at the very bottom of the page, we included the applicant shall design and maintain a current. So current is a new word. Project webpage.
Web page.
So the addition is the word current.
Do you want website or do you want?
Oh, web page, I'm sorry, web page, web page, web page. On page 80, we change the word well, we go to SCA-H. We insert the word shall instead of will. The town shall form. And then there's one more. Bear with me.
This is on page 37.
Yes, on page, thank you, on page 37, on bullet number 2. So the red text should read, design guidelines specific to development shall be included with any rezone application, period. Prototypical and/or commercially branded architecture is not permitted.
Mr. Mayor, go through that one more time, prototypical.
Yeah, so basically it'll read, design guidelines specific to development shall be included with any rezone application, period. Prototypical and/or commercially branded architecture is not permitted.
Perfect, thanks.
They're the only 3 changes. So I would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve general plan update with 3 updated items in wording that has been specified.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Please take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Miller, how do you vote?
In favor of the SPA designation.
Councilmember Amoroso, how do you vote?
In favor.
Councilmember Delicio, how do you vote?
In favor.
Councilmember Hatcher, how do you vote?
In favor.
Councilmember Johnson, how do you vote?
Favor.
Vice Mayor Croyer, how do you vote?
I'm in favor of it.
Mayor Crane, how do you vote?
Aye. Okay, so the measure passes unanimously. Again, thank you all very much. And it'll be on the ballot in November. Agenda item number 8, second quarter economic development update. Mr. Popapek.
Mayor, if we got 1 minute so I can.
Okay. Okay, we'll take a break for 5 minutes. At 7:05, we'll start up again. That's good. Okay, thank you. All right. Item number 8. Second quarter economic development update. Mr. Propopek.
Mayor and Council, thanks for the opportunity to do these updates. When we went through the work plan approval process for this past year, or for the next 2 years, you guys asked that we come in quarterly and kind of give you an update what's going on, and so that's what we're here to do. When you look at the work plan, I just want to kind of let everybody know that we're focused really on 4 things: the intersection of Carefree Highway and Cave Creek Road, which includes the northeast corner of that roadway, but as well, you know, we have the CVS, which is empty, so we've been working on that as well. So didn't really want to just focus on just that one opportunity in the corner, but looking at that intersection as a whole. The town center, and then enhancing the business environment. And then I kind of like put on there as what we do is what I had been doing a lot with economic development is the utilization of the Sanderson Lincoln Pavilion as part of how we're building events and activities and supporting the town center. And it's something that I was uniquely working on, and it's uniquely in the plan, so I just wanted to highlight that's something that I want to address. When we look at business engagement, actively been working on the 40th anniversary committee. And when I say economic development, it's not just me. I mean, there's other elements to economic development that other staff work on. For instance, Madison's really been stepping up as well and helping out with a lot of the community, or a lot of the business engagement, and has been very active on the 40th anniversary committee, and has done probably 95% of the heavy lifting for all the things that need to get done with all the great ideas that we come up with, but she also comes up with great ideas. And so just wanted to say it is a team effort, and you know, and it's all the staff members. And we'll continue to work with meeting with merchants. We started putting merchant meetings together this past year, and we'll continue to meet with those merchants. We did have another merchant meeting within the quarter. We actually had 2 of them, and again, Madison's being very involved with that. But just because we do the meetings doesn't mean that I, as your economic development director, don't walk around, at least in the town center, try to meet as many businesses as I possibly can. And then we also meet with key employers as well. The mayor and I actually met with Lowe's, the general manager at Lowe's, and we had a great conversation, and that Lowe's is very healthy. And so it's just making sure that we're monitoring the health of the businesses that we have, because you do have unexpected decisions that, you know, where a business could leave, but we feel very confident where we are with Lowe's, and we have a great relationship over there, as well as meeting with Savannah. And it's nice to see that Savannah has really expanded their brand. You know, they were always continuously one of the top in the world in what they do, and what they do is very specialized, and it brings something very special to the community. You know, those guys started at a very rough time. They've stuck with it, and it's been great to see that they're continuing with their business model, and it's a great attribute. They're really working hard to try to work with their neighbors to make sure that they fit in nicely with the neighborhood. They're participating in the 40th anniversary and trying to be more community minded. They've been really working on trying to make sure that they integrate themselves with more of the businesses in the community, in particular with Town Center. You can see their bikes and the folks riding around when the weather's nice. And so a lot of good positivity coming, and they really have been expanding the amount of people their visitors that have been coming, and everything's moving forward in a very positive way. And then one of the things that we really worked hard on is working with our galleries. And you know, Carefree's always had this idea of being an artist community, and if you go back and look at the original deed restrictions and the way the town was put together, they really did have this fondness for wanting to create some type of art community. And so it is important. We do have, you know, a significant number of galleries for a smaller town, and so we are in our 4th year now of the art walk. And so I know this is a quarterly update, but part of the reason I'm giving you some of the updates of some of this stuff for the season is that we're ending a season in this particular quarter. So the art galleries have been great. The Third Thursday Art Night has gone phenomenal. We've had 100% participation on the galleries. It's grown year by year over the last 4 years, and they actually do participate in the advertising at 50%. So everything that they've said they were going to do, they've done. We've expanded upon what that program is, and it's just been a huge success, and the art galleries are excited for the next season. Events in the Sanderson Lincoln Pavilion, those kind of go hand in hand. And we actually had a really great season. After the pandemic, we spent a lot of time rebuilding what that programming looks like in the Sanderson Lincoln Pavilion and in the gardens, and really wanted to focus on community-based program, as well as things that maybe could enhance the business environment. And so when people are walking around, it really just is more enjoyable. And so one of the things we did was Sanderson Lincoln Saturdays, and that's on every Saturday. We always had something going on, whether it was a music that was happening or some type of activity or event. And that was just something interesting. So when somebody came to town, there was something interesting happening on a Saturday afternoon, but it wasn't like the focal point necessarily of their day. It was just part of the ambiance. And so it was very successful. We're going to continue rolling with that through this next season. You know, obviously we had our community and holiday events and garden seminars, Desert Foothills Theater, Kiwanis, you name it. We've done a lot of things. And one of the nice things we saw this year is both Desert Foothills Land Trust and the Carefree Park organization were able to utilize the space for community engagement in what their efforts are. So I'd like to see more of that as well, and we'll continue to build upon that schedule. Again, working with Madison and with Debbie in our office to build that schedule up. We continue to work with the Thunderbird artists. We had a great season with them as well. If you notice, the footprint changed this season, and a lot of that is based around the idea that, you know, businesses, we're trying to work really hard to make sure that it benefits the businesses in a way that's meaningful, and we try to listen to what the business issues are. And so a lot of the changes you've seen have really been related towards the businesses. And I will say this last season, probably the fewest complaints I've ever had from businesses related to the Thunderbird artists. Matter of fact, more businesses in favor of the Thunderbird artists and seeing benefit towards it, and particularly those on Easy Street, where we really focused a lot of the booths. So we worked really hard on a lot of the parking situations, and it's been very fruitful. And so we were just getting the applications now for next year for the Thunderbird artists. Farmers Market, year in and year out, has just been successful and has grown, and it's pretty much at its max capacity. And then, again, I touched on the third Thursday, and you can see the numbers there. And so averaged at about 200 visitors per night, 400 at our peak in the spring, and so you just kind of average it out to about 1,600 folks. And this is kind of anecdotal. I mean, you know, we have to talk to artists to see how many people roll through. Some of them only go to certain galleries. Some of them walk around the town center, and so it's so this is, you know, I think a good gauge. As far as town center goes, this last quarter we approved the comprehensive wayfinding signage plan. We are currently engaged with the Shell Station ownership, and I think we've talked about this in the past. It's been very convoluted and confusing how all the ownership on all those parcels work. The actual owner stepped up, and we were in communication. They're very communicative. They had to deal with an issue of a tenant that they had on site that was managing the Shell Station, who's not there anymore. And so they're making positive changes to the convenience store. They're making positive changes to the gas station, and they're looking to potentially redevelop the site. And maybe put a better brand in and just clean up that site, as well as they're going to be working to take those buildings down behind and clean up everything along the alleyway. So so it's very positive. Very happy that they're engaged with that.
They've even made some improvements already, however subtle. I mean,
subtle, yeah. And they just took it over last week, so you can see that they're very motivated, even with what they've done, to make sure that that's going to be a really nice site. And, you know, one of the issues has been, as far as redevelopment, is the continued use of gas on that particular site. And I think, for the most part, people in the community have said gas is something they still want to see in the community because it's a convenient way to get service, you know, in this particular community. Otherwise, you're driving all the way into Cave Creek. We're still working with Spanish Village ownership on the alleyway improvements. They're currently designing ways to get rid of the dumpsters and put them in enclosures.
Maybe you just let council know which alley you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's actually, we're working on both alleys. Right now, the one alley that's behind Black Mountain Cafe, in between there and Los Portales, they're moving fairly quickly on that. They're currently looking at designing and taking the dumpsters out of that alleyway and then putting them in a corral that's going to be over towards where the fire station is, where they kind of carved out that area, and they're going to pave, they're going to asphalt on that, and then we're going to work with them on there's a little stump out that comes right behind the tea room, and they're looking at potentially just paving that and putting in 2 more parking spaces, and that would be more like employee parking spaces for the expansion of the restaurant at Black Mountain. So, and that's in process right now as well. And then the other alleyway is the one behind Keeler's, where the Shell Station is. So I have put the 2 ownerships in touch to figure out if there's a way that we can do some type of shared use on that for parking, as well as for whatever the service station folks want to do, and potentially something with Spanish Village. So Eventually, I'd like to just get rid of the alleyway and make it part of a cohesive site project, maintaining the easements, and just clean that entire area up so people can pull in, park over in that area there, and be able to walk into Keeler's or even be able to get up to go to the convenience store. And then we kicked off the town hall redevelopment process, and as you know, we've discussed, and bless you, and even with the general plan update conversation, you know, the idea that this is a process that we're going to try to get an extensive amount of public input on, looking at putting together some level of stakeholder engagement group. Had a meeting with the Economic Development Advisory Board to kind of just kick off what an RFP could start as a starting point, where we would look at based on input that we already have. And then hopefully what I'd like to do is part of that stakeholder group really do have a series of, we'll call them town halls, where people can come in and provide their input. We can put boards out, maybe different stations that allow people to have different input on that. And I guess the intent of that is based along the the plan that we have, the redevelopment plan, which was a continuation of the Village Center Master Plan. This was something that was included in there, and it's really just to maximize the economic opportunity for that particular piece of property where the town hall is, with potentially a restaurant or other type of retail use. And then after we've been working with ACE on figuring out how we're going to backfill that space, it's a little complicated in that they still have a lease through 2028, so we're working on a productive way to figure out if it's a subtenant situation or if there's a way we can work with the building owner to try to replace that lease with a different lease.
Just a quick question, just rough numbers. How much revenue does ACE and former CVS, what did they bring in annually?
I would say ACE is somewhere between 80 to 100,000, and this former CVS was around 60 to 70. A year, I'm sorry, annually.
Annually.
Yeah.
So about 170 between the two of them?
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's just spitballing. You know, I don't have the actual numbers, but.
No, I just was curious.
Yeah, but I have looked at those numbers, and that's about where I came out as my averages.
So maybe you could share why ACE moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, so ACE, you know, ACE came to us about a year and a half ago, and they've been getting hit up by the Albertson Center for a while to move down there. And so at that time, we were looking at various different options. One was looking at maybe expanding in their existing site, but because of the elevation of the building, the Bashas' actually sits 3 feet higher, and then the space next to them is 3 feet lower. So they're really confined to the almost 8,000 square feet space that they have in that particular location. And even at the time when they were considering back then, they still renewed at their existing location. So we thought we had them at least through 2028. But you know, they got a really good offer from the development down the street, and I don't blame Dave for making that decision.
Actually, their new location is 2x the size.
It's 2 times the size. They'll have 2x the frontage, which is important for hardware stores, because if you notice, they put all that stuff out there. That is how they sell a lot of stuff. That makes them money. So, you know, they got a great deal from the ownership. It's a bigger site. It's going to actually allow them to mirror the site they actually have at Tatum. So when you start looking at inventories and stocking and shelving and familiarity from one customer to the next, it's just a lot easier. They tried everything they could to stay where they were at, and it just wasn't going to work.
You know, back east, where I'm from, they have a lot of places like that. There's a, you know, you go down 3-4 steps to the other side of the store. That's pretty common, but that's all right.
Yeah, so they discussed that, but you know, again, it's an older crowd here, and folks don't want to walk up and down steps or ramps, and because it's a load-bearing wall, you'd have to have a minimal opening to get from one side of the store to the next, and it just, yeah.
Okay.
And it's no hard feelings. I mean, Dave's been a great member of the community for a very long time, and you know, he just made a business decision that's best for him. One of the things that we've done is we've been able to get a new software that allows us to look at visitor metrics, and so I've been starting to play around with that. It's very sophisticated, and it allows us to kind of look at various different areas. It allows us to look in general areas as well at visitation numbers, and it's really based upon cell phone activity. A lot of algorithms that go along with it that I'm still trying to understand exactly how it works. I'm doing some more training on it over the summer, but I've been able to extract some information that I just wanted to share with you guys as far as town center metrics. And this is kind of over the last 12 months, you know, as we start to evaluate season to season, what's going on. And you can kind of look at the numbers here. In general, our traffic was up 7% this past year in visitor traffic, our retail occupancy. And when I say retail, I'm looking at generally the town center retail areas, not including areas like, you know, buildings like this or the office spaces, but really that true retail on Easy Street where Spanish Village is, the Galleria, and in and around Easy Street. And so just to give you a flavor of kind of what's going on, and you can see by these numbers, and things start to make sense when you look at them. And obviously Spanish Village is very dominant as far as visitation goes. It has 3 restaurants. Easy Street East, which is in the orange, you can see that when Athens opened, 60% increase the previous year. And then as this last year, they didn't have a lot of growth because nothing's really been added onto that particular area there. But one of the things that's interesting is that when you start looking at Easy Street East and Easy Street West, where the tea room is, you can look at the revisitation rates. And it's no doubt that the tea room has a lower revisitation rate as they appeal to, when you look at the data, a broader audience throughout the marketplace, but they don't go as many times versus a Venues or an Athens, where it really does drive a more recurring, you know, local a patron. And so I don't know if you have any questions on this particular data here.
How long have we been, I guess, obtaining this data? Because it must be at least 2 years.
Yeah, so the data that we just got the package, and I've just been able to really start diving into it. The data can go back. I think I can do an analysis up to over, I think it's 3 years. I can go look back at that. So I look at the year over year, and if you look at our town center, year over the last 3 years, it's been pretty significant. It's close to 20% increase. You know, some may say, well, the pandemic obviously drove down traffic, but I would say that when you look at our vacancy rate, our occupancy rate has gone up, as well as our traffic's going up. It's definitely trending in a very positive direction.
I think, Steve, one thing that could be skewed here is on Easy Street East, which includes Venues and Athens, correct? Is that correct? Easy Street East?
Correct.
Yeah, so Athens was closed for renovation for a good 6 to 8 months, so I think that may have affected the numbers as well.
Yeah.
If not longer than that. So we look at that and we see 1% annual growth, despite the fact that a major tenant in that restaurant in a high visibility corner was, you know, had wrapping around it and wasn't closed. There was still a little bit of growth there. So I imagine those numbers are going to be much higher next year.
Yeah, I think that, you know, we saw significant growth with Athens, particularly when they opened for a full season the year before at 60%. So I think a lot of it was captured then when they officially opened for that particular 1 year period. Yeah, they've had their times when they've been open and closed. But, you know, I think when you start looking at the data and information here, you know, it's I don't see, there's nothing wrong with seeing a 1% growth in traffic in that particular area there, because they saw such a significant traffic increase the year before. It was going to balance out at some level. What that shows me is that area is operating at a very high capacity for what it is. And, you know, we'd have great tenants on that location there. You know, Holly's been there forever. Grinding Gears went in, and so they're driving more traffic than the jewelry store. And they went in that past year, so they're part of the 60% when that came in. So you're seeing, I mean, functionally, this is starting to come together in a really nice fashion. And even when you look at Los Portales, I don't know if anybody's been in there, but there's a lot of tenants upstairs now, and so that's one of the things that when you start looking at the occupancy levels, that helped drive some of that up. And it has driven up some of the numbers, in particular, you know, obviously there's some more work to do, but you know, it just, and I just kind of want to show here is one of the interesting things when you look at the data is you would assume that our peak times of traffic are going to be like in the afternoon. They are not. Our peak visitor traffic time is the dinner time slot, which just shows you that restaurants drive our economy and drive traffic. And Friday night between 5 and 8 p.m. is the busiest time in Carefree. That's the time we have the most visitor traffic. And so, yeah, restaurant and hospitality are absolutely what drives a ton of our traffic here. The gardens, so the data I'm looking at here is the number of trips that the gardens generate that's the first place somebody comes to. So they're bringing in 30,000 people as, maybe they came here for something else, but that is where they start. And the way the data works, it doesn't count somebody who just walks through. There's a certain time period you have to experience that particular place for that data to count. So
this counts our dog walkers?
it does count the dog walkers when you look at the total visits. Yep. So there's people who come back, but what I wanted to do is just show that there's unique visitors versus just total visits. And so these unique visitors are all unique individuals that come in, and this does not include people who don't have cell phones, which is mostly just going to be children for the most part. And, well, certain people who just are technology adverse. And then our business months, I don't think anybody was surprised that are November, March, and April. And as I get more into this software, I want to really start focusing on building all of the baseline information, so year in and year out we can evaluate and just agree upon how we want to do the evaluation for the town center or even for other areas based on the types of visitation and visitor traffic. And that'll help us drive, when we start doing marketing strategies and any kind of promotional, or we're looking at types of businesses we want to bring in. The data also looks at where people are coming from. I just didn't have a chance to really sort through in this time frame to be able to tell you how many are out of state, how many are in state, and where are they coming in from in-state and from within the region. But it is pretty interesting. And so the more I get into it, the more we'll come back and we'll figure out what it is, how we want to see the data, and then year in and year out we can evaluate that and measure our progress, because I think metrics are important.
If we know where especially local folks, meaning Arizona folks, are coming from, we can target our marketing accordingly.
Exactly. So if we see a lot of people are coming from, North Peoria, well, maybe we should start looking at North Peoria as an opportunity. And it is showing some interesting things. And I would say that we do have a broad appeal to the greater Phoenix marketplace. It's when you look at the heat mapping, it's kind of all over the place. And the tea room does draw from everywhere. I'll tell you right now, it is very, very prolific in its ability to reach all the way to Buckeye and everywhere else. So, and then, excuse me, Cave Creek Road and Carefree Highway. The fact that I didn't put this first doesn't mean it's not the most important. I just wanted to walk through the other stuff and kind of anchor the conversation with where we are here. We've been working with the broker at the 5400 East Carefree Highway, which is the old CVS building. And they're currently working with a retail tenant. So we'll continue to try to foster and facilitate that as best as we possibly can. We've been discouraging some tenants that we didn't think were ones that we'd like to see, and they get it. They're really focused on trying to bring in something that's going to be retail focused. And it's a nice building, and they want to keep a quality tenant in there as well. So it's a mutual that we were looking to try to make sure that something sooner versus something better, right? We want to get something right for that spot.
What is that you're referring to, the CVS?
CVS.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
And then the Carefree Quarter project, that's the northeast corner. We just had the pre-application last week. We still are working on the wash issues, but I think we're moving our way through those particular issues and the offsites. And as we sit right now, their goal is to try to be open within 2 years from now, so the summer of 2026. As far as being able to get through the process and get under construction. And so one of the things that we'll make sure that happens as part of that conversation, we're not going through a rezoning on this, but obviously people are going to be interested in what this thing's going to look like. And so quality is a conversation that we've had with them, and when they start to look at opportunities for reducing, they always cost conscious. This wash is very expensive. We're not going to sacrifice on quality. We can't do that. It's not good for our long term. It's not good for their long term as well. And our total cash flow on this project is extremely important in the long haul. So I feel very confident. Diversified and Empire have been great to work with to this point. They've been very upfront, honest, from my perspective, forward and honest with the information that they've been providing us. Time is of the essence for them to get this done, and so we're all on the same page on this one at this point, and we'll be having some more conversations in the near future about some next steps. And then other activities we're working on is I'm actually working on a retail optimization analysis and plan for the town center. This is going to go in concert with when Peter did the revenue, the budget projections, and then I did a kind of an opportunity report that was somewhat generic at that time, but it looked at the town center and the retail potential. I'm actually diving deep down into the granular level, almost actually to the very tenant level, and identify exactly what we have and where we have it, and what's where is the opportunity for us to make sure that we can maximize our tenancy and maximize the retail opportunity within the town center. And so with that will come recommendations. Some of those recommendations will come along with investments we have to make, whether it's in infrastructure or public-private partnerships. Some of it's just going to be things that we'll look at as far as ordinance changes. One of the things we want to look at is design guidelines, and we want to look at ways that we can manage or if there's ordinance changes that we need to make sure that we're getting the right types of occupancy and tenancy. And part of it's just going to come down to enforcement. Are we enforcing our ordinances to make sure that the types of uses that we expect to go into the spaces that we want to have retail in that are going to be beneficial to us being the type of town center that we want, they're in there. So we're going to be looking at that comprehensively. I should have that report done, and I'll have that back to the Economic Development Advisory Board in August, and go through all of that, and then let them kind of focus and tweak on that, and then bring that back to council at some point in the fall. And then again, working with the building safety, we're working with Fire Marshal, Stacy, and zoning administration to kind of talk about how we do permitting, how we do business licensing, how we can improve those processes that are going to make it easier for businesses to come here, make it clear as what the expectations are, making sure that people have the proper certificates of occupancy for the spaces, that we have safe spaces. One of the things that we're going to be driving towards is making sure that, nobody wants to be Scottsdale, but we sure as heck don't want to be, South Nogales. So we're going to make sure that businesses are going to be safe, that the type of occupancies we have are carefree, that the buildings are carefree quality, that the buildings are part of a carefree market, and that's the way it should be. And so we'll keep working with that to try to drive it to that place. And then we'll continue with the circulation and parking plan. We're going to re-engage Kimley Horn back on that. Probably try to set something up with the stakeholder group this summer if we can get everybody together. And then we'll keep working in the fall to have that done with the recommendations that we could take back to planning and zoning, and then ultimately to council is for the circulation for the town center, which would include Carefree Highway or Cave Creek Road, Tom Darlington, as well as internal circulation. That's it.
Any questions or comments from council?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Nice work, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, the one with the overview of the different colors and what part of the towns, and you're able to get that data. I mean, that's the kind of data we all need to see, and then you can build, as you well know, a game plan going forward. So I think that was a really nice piece of work.
Thanks.
And I wish you the best as you develop through this.
Thank you.
I would say, we have a lot of balls in the air, a lot of stuff happening. So you could even come back in 2 months instead of 3.
Okay.
Seriously.
Sure. Yeah, no, I probably will. And some of these things, we're more than likely will be coming back and talking about some specific sites and projects. So, yeah, as we talk about balls in the air, obviously we're going to keep our eyes focused on the things that we need to get done. But as a program, it's obvious you got, just like anything, you got the things you're dealing with today, you got the things you're going to do in the short and the medium term, and then you got the long pole and the tent kind of projects, and we're just keep moving those things on. So, and the idea is that today's long-term projects are going to be short-term projects someday. Let's just make sure that they're ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, what kind of tenant will replace the Ace Hardware location? Any ideas?
Well, I mean, we'll do our best to try to get some type of retail tenant in there. One of the things we're going to need to do is talk with the building owner, because I need to understand if there's any restrictions on tenants there. So whether Bashas probably has a restriction, or if Sue Bickerdike has any, how many home goods stores can you put in there? Though I think a home goods store, they all kind of seem to get near each other. So it's turning into kind of a magnet for that when you start looking at there's Bella Fine Goods, Sue Bickerdike, and you have the patio furniture guy there, and they're all high quality.
So I think by restrictions, you mean they might have clauses in their contracts which would preclude a competing business to move in. So
Drugstore,
Bashas'
liquor
may
store.
object, legally be able to say, we don't want a liquor store in that space.
Right. So those are the things we're going to be looking through. The big issue I need to figure out, honestly, is who's going to be leasing that. My hope is that the building owner and their leasing team will be leasing that space. Because I'm not sure Whitestone, who did the deal down the street with Ace, is going to be, even though they're responsible right now, I think, for the lease potentially. I don't know how motivated they're going to be to put somebody in that spot. So we're going to be working on that. But yeah, obviously we can't dictate what goes in there, but we'll make every effort we can to get something quality in there.
Steve, I have a question for you. Social media plays really big into marketing, and I don't know if this is a Madison question or if this is something that ties in economic development, but do you have a way of tracking the hits on certain things that we put on our website, or is there a way to market what's going on in our town and be able to capture that information so that we can keep doing it or do it better or do it more?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Delicio, that's a great segue into how I wanted to end the presentation. I'm going to be working with Madison on putting together a communications marketing plan that she'll present. Hopefully, we're looking at August, and then we can address all of those, because communications and marketing kind of go hand in hand in a lot of cases, because we're utilizing social media for communication, but it's also a great marketing tool. And as well as we're putting the whole event calendar together for this next year. And so, August is a great time to start talking about what's coming up. It's a great time to do the update for the 40th. So, I don't know if Madison wants to come and answer that question specific now, or if you're okay to wait till when she's got the plan prepared and ready to go through that conversation, we can do that.
Yeah, we caught her off guard tonight, so we'll talk more.
Yeah.
I have another question, Steve, if I may. Did you say that there is a new owner for the gas station? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Hatcher. What happened was Western States Petroleum owned it at one point, and they sold it to the company to Bennett Oil, who ended up becoming the owner of the property there.
Okay.
They were operating, Bennett Oil out of California was operating that Shell station, but operating gas stations, I don't know if this was their thing specifically. And then they sold it and leased it back from the owner, which is a local brother and sister who own it. And they kind of let the tenant kind of let it go into, you saw, I mean, gas was, eventually they took it back over. And
I'm
so
really glad to hear that
Yep.
this is happening, because it was an eyesore for sure.
It was, and it took them. It was a long process, I think, for them to get it back, and so they seem to be really very conscious operators and really want to do the right thing. And they're in the process of designing something right now that we want to bring in as far as redevelopment for that site.
And you mentioned there's the areas behind it, by the tank where the gas is. There's a
Yep.
spot back there and so forth. They're going to clean that all up, did you say?
Yep, they're in process of cleaning that up. They were actually trying to talk with Rural Metro. Potentially, they can utilize that to do some training in before they take it down. But, yep.
All right, excellent.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Great, thank you, Steve. Good job.
Thanks.
And we have no public comment slips on that item. Agenda item number 9. What we do? We have a public. You have to. I got it. No, we'll have public comment after every agenda item.
Nobody can but you.
Hi again, Ariane Buser. Thank you for the update, Steve. I think that was really great to hear, because I have been wondering what has been going on around the town, especially with some of the development efforts. So the northeast corner, I guess I was just curious, it sounds like things are moving forward. Are you able to share what sort of space might be going in there? And then on that vein, will there be an opportunity for the community to be involved and at least made aware of what's planning to go in there? Thank you.
Go right ahead.
Okay, yeah, great questions. So the development is adhering to the approved site plan and to the existing zoning. So I just want to say so it's going to be a commercial project, which is what I think everybody wanted. And yes, there will be opportunities for the public to be able to know what's going on. I wish I could say more right now. Probably in the next few weeks I'll be back, or at least within the next month, we'll be back to provide, I think, a really more significant update of what's happening on that site.
Okay, thank you. So I'll close the public comment. That was an information-only agenda item. Item number 9, review and discussion regarding amendments to the town's municipal separate storm sewer system, MS4, standards, Carefree Town Code, Chapter 5, Article 6, Section 12, first reading.
Thank you, Mayor. We saved the best for last. This subject will put you to sleep if you're not already tired, but this is a federal mandate that is passed on to local governments. It's passed through the state and on to the local jurisdictions. It's about the Clean Water Act, obviously minimizing illicit discharges into waters that can then be passed on to other concentrated areas and pollute our aquifers or other waters of the United States, as they call them. And so this is the mechanism to protect those waters throughout the United States. So there's a permit that each community has. ADQ is the state agency that oversees each one of those permits. And incrementally over time, those requirements obviously evolve. And then they do random audits of the local communities. We just had our random audit last September. And they ask us to update certain things. So some of our processes and procedures, and in this case, a ordinance that deals with some of our violations. So essentially, we were visited by ADQ. We spent all day with them in one day in September of this past fall, and we went through a extensive process going through a entire notebook that we document all the inspections that we do on an annual basis, how we do it, what did we find, did we do if there were violations, and I could go on and on and on. But once again, this is something behind the scenes. It's not sexy, but as local government, we are required to do. And that's why you have paid staff, in part, to do some of these requirements. We are government, and we are required to do some of these things. So this is one of those things that we're addressing. The ordinance itself is found within Section 5612 of the Town Code. And it's the enforcement procedures and penalties for violations of the town's stormwater ordinance. The proposed revisions strengthen the town code by clarifying property owner responsibilities, detailing procedures for processing violations, and aligning penalties for violations with those of neighboring communities. So it's more uniform with other communities. So if a contractor comes in here, it's uniform, the standards that we apply, just like they apply in other local jurisdictions in and around us. The code amendments, uniform process, they require 2 readings. First reading is just to present the topic, so that's what we're doing tonight. Second reading is to conduct the official public hearing and to consider any refinements, and then eventually a possible adoption after the public hearing that evening. My time is up. So in conclusion, no actions required tonight. This is just for information purposes. Next month, we will have the official public hearing, and then if adopted, it takes effect within 30 days. So this is just one of those things that ADQ said, tweak your ordinance, and we're jumping in line and tweaking our ordinance to adhere to their respective requirements. Oh, any questions?
Yeah, so the new text is basically verbatim what they tell us to insert.
Yes. Yep.
So, yeah, you said the second reading to the general public. I mean, this is a policy we have to adhere to, or ordinance we have to adhere to by state law. So is it just this reading you're going to have, the second reading, is just to bring awareness to the public of what we're doing and why? And
So-
one more question.
Yep.
I hope the new storm drain we just finished building meets all these guidelines.
Yes. But our internal process when we amend our town code requires 2 readings of those amendments. Now, it doesn't require 2 readings if there's a supermajority, but typically we go through a 2-step process just to allow people to be introduced to the topic, review the topic, and then give feedback at the second reading. So it's another way that we're transparent and we talk about these things and we allow public input. Yep.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Okay, well, thank you. It's
All right.
clear. See you in August. Agenda item number 10, review, discussion, and possible action to award a contract for the Tom Darlington pedestrian crosswalk project. Mr. Neese.
All right, last but not least, this is an important project. Obviously, this is not something that staff went behind a closed door and conceived an idea of improving crosswalks. Much like any infrastructure in town, we get questions. We get residents that come to us and say, I have an issue with this wastewater plant. I have an issue with our water quality. In this case, I have an issue with the pedestrian crosswalks. And so we hired a professional traffic engineer back in 2020, 2021 to meet with these residents to talk about improvements to these crosswalks. How can we make it safer to them? Identifying the issues and then looking at the standards, and there's standards that you have to comply to when you make these improvements. They look at the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, Maricopa Association of Governments, MAGs, uniform standards, and then Arizona Department of Transportation Traffic Control guidelines. So when the traffic engineer is studying the issue, these are points of references that they pull from to ensure that they meet proper standards when designing that crosswalk. So the engineer met with the residents, came up with some ideas, presented those ideas to the council. They flushed out those ideas with the council. We actually went out, if you recall, and walked those sites with the engineer. Then there were additional meetings with the residents to talk about the modifications that were being made. And then during that entire process, we said, gee, MAG has some pedestrian grants. Let's see if we can get some pedestrian grants. Unfortunately, the first 2 tries, we were not successful. Why were we not successful? These are regional funds. So pedestrian crosswalks in more concentrated areas, there's fatalities. And so one of the pieces of criteria was, did you have a fatality at that crosswalk? Fortunately, we didn't have any fatalities. We had near misses, but it didn't meet the sweet spot for that grant. Over time, they've changed that, and now we've met some of that criteria, so we do have some funding for this respective project. But consequently, we still worked on these crosswalks individually. We prioritized them, and the ones along Cave Creek Road were the ones that we wanted to correct sooner rather than later, due to the amount of asphalt that the pedestrians had to cross and the number of people that were crossing those crosswalks and complained about it. So we made improvements about 24 months ago to the crosswalks on Cave Creek Road in these 2 respective locations. We also then followed that up with another project on Ridgeview Place on Tom Darlington to make temporary improvements, and we improved the rapid reflectors there, and we restriped the street to create a pedestrian refuge area there. And we wanted to see how that striping worked, because that was a little bit of a change to the circulation pattern in that area. And then we knew if it did work and it was acceptable to the community, we would go back and put in some curbing to solidify that design. So those are the modifications that have been made. This is the final phase now, and we're looking at 3 crosswalks along Tom Darlington. Most notably the southernmost one at Wampum Way, the one I just spoke about at Ridgeview Place, and then introducing new crosswalks. When we started talking about this, more people came to the table. And what we found is that there was residents on the north side of Cave Creek Road in the Sundance neighborhood, as well as those businesses there that love to walk across the street to get a cup of coffee at the Carefree Roastery and walk into the town center, and they said the intersection is unsafe. We need some crosswalks here too. So that was placed on the radar at that point in time. So at real high level, these are the respective crosswalks zooming in. This is Wampum and Tom Darlington. As you can see, this was designed back in the late 90s when the town center improvements were done in this traffic circle. It's not a roundabout, it's just a circular road or circular detail in the road with a circular median. It doesn't function as a roundabout because you drive straight through. One of the dangers with this crosswalk when they designed it, if you were on the east side of the road here, the town center side of the road, and you're walking back to your condo, your back is to the oncoming traffic. Not an optimal position to be in if you're a elderly pedestrian trying to manage a pretty broad section of asphalt that you're trying to get across. So the redesign here is to straighten that crosswalk out and then to narrow the street through some curbing here. And the magic behind the narrowing of streets is it slows the traffic. So there's some pinch points here. So it slows the traffic and it reduces the amount of asphalt the pedestrian needs to cross. So there's additional curbing, the radius of this curbing is expanded outwards to cause that little pinch here. There's what's called a little pork chop here that will be painted in the street, and that's to try and accentuate more of a roundabout type of feel to that and slow that traffic coming into this traffic circle and force them around that radius. In addition, the vehicle merger, the lanes leading into this roundabout are off, and we're gonna redesign those lanes, and we're gonna flip it. There was a section of this roundabout that is painted in this area. You can see the paint right here, and the traffic lane right here, the bike lane, and then the turning lane right here. This is gonna be inverted, so the through lane is actually closer to the center of this traffic circle, and that forces the traffic to meander a little bit around that to, once again, act more like a roundabout and slow that traffic as it approaches this pinch point of the pedestrian crossing here. So a little bit of redesign entering. It's going to merge a lot better than it does today. So significant improvements to that respective intersection. As far as the Ridgeview Place pedestrian crosswalk, you can see right here, this is how it exists today. So this was the refinement that we made about 18 months ago with the striping. And this is not gradual, it's very abrupt. We're gonna clean that up so it's more gradual. We're gonna invert this so the merger forces you to this outer lane here. There will be some curbing introduced closer to the pedestrian crosswalk. This curbing, once again, forms that pinch zone and slows that traffic as it approaches the pedestrian crosswalk and allows for that pedestrian to have a safe zone both on either side of the crosswalk as well as in the middle of that crosswalk. So as we learned, there's a lot of folks that are in the golden years of their life, and they like to walk across the street and certainly do not feel safe with the current design here. This will give them that refuge to take a break and then cross the remaining side of the crosswalk. So those are the improvements being made to Ridgeview Place. And then looking at Cave Creek Road and Tom Darlington, so obviously no pedestrian crossings here. And it's not oriented in the same manner. So this is Tom Darlington, Sundance on the north side, and then Cave Creek Road east-west here. This is Cave Creek Road here, Sundance, and then Tom Darlington. So you can see the pork chop medians on either side here. There will be crosswalks coming across, and then breaks in the curb cuts made here so that one could walk into these pedestrian refuge areas and then across and go get a glass of wine and stumble home from Bricks. Oh, you don't? Okay. Let me, let's see. So can you see that? No. Oh, bummer. Okay. Well, I don't know. There we go, okay. All right, let me do my presentation over. So once again, intersection, Sundance on the north side, Cave Creek Road east-west, Tom Darlington coming north. This is not oriented like this image is. So this is Sundance here, Cave Creek Road east-west, and Tom Darlington coming north. So these are the crosswalks being proposed. You can see the pork chops here, the medians that exist today, and how the crosswalks will come in. There'll be a hard surface. All these things need ADA landings, so we will have the little Brillo pads, if you will, at the edge of the crosswalk to notify anybody who's blind that they're entering or getting close to the crosswalk, so we're required to do those these days. So that will be all integrated in here. But the most significant thing is obviously the introduction of these crosswalks. In addition, the stop signs here, one of the things that we've received complaints on is compliance with the four-way stops. And some of these four-way stops you'll see around Cave Creek and other communities, they now have blinking LED lights in them, and there's a solar panel that operates them. They're going to introduce them at this intersection. We'll see how they perform, and they deal with the compliance issue that some people complain people don't stop here. So the little LED lights, we do have them today on the existing crosswalks at Cave Creek Road. They're the warning signs when you approach the crosswalk and that crosswalk button is activated. There's little LED lights that are yellow that blink to warn the vehicles you're approaching the crosswalk and there's somebody entering into that crosswalk. And it's been really, really effective. And we joke that about the culvert on the north side of Cave Creek Road that we just completed. I was over there almost on a daily basis, and I activated that. And before we put those lights in, there wasn't much compliance. But I have to tell you, every time I crossed it and I activated it, every car stopped for me. So personal experience, that they are working very well, and it is effective. And those LED lights, people see them better. So hopefully they see the stop sign better. So those are the improvements being made at the intersection. As far as funding, the overall project was bid out last spring. We did not receive any bidders. It's a very difficult environment still to get people, contractors to come up here. We bid it out again this spring. We waited a little bit, and it did free up some contractors, and we had 3 bids. Lowest responsible bidder was Falcone Brothers at $761,000. You can see the 2 other bids, so significantly less.
Hey, Gary, sorry to interrupt you.
Yep.
Quick question for you. Is, like the street project that you were able to kind of piggyback off of other municipalities in order to secure some discounted pricing for the ceiling, is there any way to determine or find out when other municipalities neighboring are going through such redevelopment projects and try to piggyback off of those with these developers, with these contractors?
It would just be word of mouth. You would have to be aware of the respective projects and see if there's a piggyback provision within that contract, and then you could piggyback. These crosswalks are more unique than a street project. Obviously, we know the amount of materials that we have with a street project, and typically there's piggyback provisions within those street projects. But we do historically bid out our street projects as well too. This provided us an avenue to probably get the best price possible. I don't think there's a piggyback provision that I know of with some of this stuff. That being said, when we order, for example, we're looking at solar speed radar signs as part of our budget. There is cooperatives, the state co-op, that we can purchase off of to buy that equipment, and that's what we'll be looking to do, is that state contract to purchase that equipment and get the lowest possible price. But the bidding process provided us a pretty good pricing for this. It's kind of shocking to see the pricing, but everything is so expensive these days. So
Thank you.
400, absolutely. 53% or $405,000 of that $761,000 is coming through MAG. We have a short time clock here because of the bidding process that we went through, and we didn't get any bidders the first time around. That shot clock expires on September 30th. Trying to work through MAG to get a extension of that because of the bid process and the issues that we had, and I got some positive reaction. That being said, also communicated with Falcon Brothers, and they think that they can certainly meet that deadline. So, but they can't control weather, and they can't control when materials are supplied to them. So there are variables there that sometimes impact those deadlines. But
Gary, is that money sent to you, the 405, or does it go to the Falcon Brother Construction when the time is?
So it's not sent to me. I just want to be clear about that. It is sent to the town, and there's a whole process associated with receiving funds through MAG. So each entity, whether it's Maricopa County Flood District, whether it's MAG, whether it's another state agency, if you apply for grants and you get those grants, there's all these strings attached and a process associated with it. So I'm working through that process with MAG, and it will be reimbursed to us, and then we cut the checks to the contractor.
Thank you.
Which contractor do you like? Are they all good?
Well, the lowest responsible bidder, we did the background check and looked at their license. Falcon Brothers is good, yeah.
So that means we have to come up with $356,000.
Yes, and that was programmed into the budget. So if you go back to.
No, I remember.
Yeah,
I remember, yeah.
So I estimated about $750,000. That's $11,000 off, but yeah. So so the expenditure's in there. It's a little bit more than we anticipated, but 405 of that is coming through that grant. So action before the council tonight is authorization of the contract to the Falcon Brothers for the amount of approximately $761,000. Once the contract is executed, they post their bonds, post notice to proceed, and or I give notice to proceed, and then the 90-day clock starts clicking. So that's where we're at. Be glad to address any questions.
So I have a couple of questions. One, the pedestrian lights we have today, you push the button, it flashes yellow. Citizens always ask, wouldn't it be better if they flash red? Maybe you could just explain that to us.
So that doesn't meet the standard. So the flashing red is used for hawk systems. So if you go, for example, down into Scottsdale and you see almost like a traffic signal coming over the road, they have the yellow flash, and then they eventually flash red, and then it's a solid red. That's the standard today with these crosswalks, and they're used on many mid-block crosswalks where you are crossing multiple lanes. So, for example, down by Scottsdale Quarter and Carolyn on Scottsdale Road, that's a hawk system. And so that's when you apply those red lights. When you have this system, it doesn't warrant those red lights. So this is something that's I don't want to say a dumbed down system, but a simpler system that is not as urban as those hawk system, and that's why you're seeing them on lesser dense areas. So places like Carefree, they're being introduced because it's not that urban feel like the other communities are doing with their hawk system.
So what we need to do is comply with some transportation standard or something that drives the yellow versus the red.
Yes.
So it's not even an option for us.
No. So it's if it is an option if you want the hawk system.
Oh,
yeah. So that's the option. So, but with these systems, it's usually just a warning. The yellow is the warning. Slow down, pedestrian in the crosswalk.
Okay, thank you. And often we have contingencies attached to contracts. This time we don't.
No, we don't. No.
So I guess why sometimes we do and sometimes we don't? I mean,
so with a street project, there's many variables with the materials. We estimate the quantities. Sometimes the streets are more so in disrepair than we have estimated. When we do a street project, it's 30 miles of street, and measuring every single crack would be impossible. So when you do estimations and then they go out and do the project, sometimes the quantities are a little bit more, and that's an item that we negotiate, and we try and allow for some flexibility at the tail end. In addition,
sometimes we run into conditions where the street, instead of a slurry, we have alligatoring, and we need to do a mill and overlay or a repair and replace, R&R, where we dig out a portion of the street. That costs more, wasn't contemplated in the bid, but sometimes some of that stuff is uncovered as we're going through these street projects. And so that adds to the cost. So with the street projects, we do anticipate a contingency, because sometimes there's conditions that we're not aware of.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Any other questions?
Just one more. Just curious, with the one by the bank, the second crosswalk around the roundabout, that pass-through, is that sidewalk in the middle, that safety zone, with the, go back to the other slide, pardon me. The next, yeah, that one, right where the, looks like a racetrack in the middle of the walkway there? Is there a pass-through, is that a curb that you have to step over?
No, so the curbing will, there'll be vertical curbing here, and then the curbing will be flushed along the pedestrian crosswalk here.
Is there motion detected lights that go on at night that's low level that we talked about in that bid?
So if you look at the bid documents that are included in your packets, you'll see the light standard. There's a little light on the top of the pole that will help to illuminate the crosswalk at night when it's activated. It's not activated all the time.
And then just one more comment. It always seemed to me, in driving through town, that our stop signs are very tall. Is that standard size throughout the country? But they just look tall to me.
It is not, and there's a reason to that madness. The reason is, over time, a lot of those stop signs have been taken out by the rear view mirrors of the trucks, the construction traffic that comes through town. We're not gonna stop that. We have a lot of recreation vehicles with the wide mirrors too, and they hit those stop signs and knock them down. So as a result of trials and tribulations of repairing and replacing stop signs, our Public Works
You
Department
trim them
said,
down.
you know what, if we put higher stop signs, they won't be hit all the time. And so they did it, and they weren't hit all the time. That's not to say they're not hit, but it reduced the number of occurrences.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You know, I heard that having the taller sign, it's a safety thing. When a car hits it, the sign goes over the roof of the car rather than through the windshield.
Yep, yep.
So
And-
designed to break,
Yep.
you know, at the base.
Yeah,
break off
yeah.
for safety.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the council? So we'll open it to public comment. Mr. Mike Braun.
Gary, I am so glad to hear, I think I heard, that you're going, Mike Braun, I'm sorry, that you're going to have flashing red lights at Tom Darlington and Cave Creek for stop signs. I would suggest to you that there are more accidents and more fatalities at Cave Creek and Pima. I'm not positive of that, but I live right there, and there was one nasty one, 6 months ago, give or take? And there was just a very bad accident there a week ago or 10 days ago. Why can't we put the flashing red lights on those 4 stop signs?
So one of the issues that we're evaluating is partnering with MAG and Scottsdale to do those intersection improvements at that
I understand, that's a long
So
ways off.
The other thing that we face is what I just discussed, which is the magnitude of, in this case, in the case of Pima and Cave Creek Road, it's the recreation traffic that goes through that intersection. And so we have stop signs that are torn out quite often. The cost of these signs is pretty significant. You have to,
The cost of human life is even more significant.
Yes, but there's aggravating factors to some of those accidents that a stop sign with LED lights would not have cured.
I don't disagree with that, but I've seen, I live there, so I see people blow those stop signs continuously.
Yep. So
And I see those flashing red lights in Cave Creek, and I don't see people blowing through the stop sign at Cave Creek and Schoolhouse.
Yeah. So, you know, the issue is the geometrics, the design of the street. And when you're approaching that intersection on Cave Creek Road going westbound, you're coming out of Desert Mountain most likely.
Sure.
And the speeds there are 50+ miles an hour.
Mhm.
And they're continuing that speed as they're approaching that intersection. In addition, you have a lot of recreation vehicle traffic that are frequenting the lakes and having a good time and coming through there, not paying attention. So, you know, the LED lights, they stop those occurrences? Perhaps 1, 2, would it cure the situation? It's not a panacea. You know, there's a cost benefit that we have to weigh. There's data that drives decisions.
Could I ask what it costs to put those in there?
I believe they're about $3,000 plus per sign.
You know what? That'd be a great expense for the city to put in there. It would save lives. It would save a lot of fire department time and effort, because they got to respond to everything that's out there, and also Maricopa County Sheriff. I got to tell you, if it costs $12,000 to put those 4 up, you ought to do it.
So one last question related. What's the timetable for the MAG study on that intersection?
The planner who's working on it with MAG just contacted me the end of last week, and he has signed the contract with the engineer of record, and they're going to start meeting with us, I believe, in August.
And when do we expect the public engagement, to have public engagement meetings, or public meetings to talk about this stuff?
I'll learn more as we start the process with Scottsdale and MAG. I just don't have that answer right now.
Okay, that'll be, well, I'm sure we'll be very interested in that, because it's a chance to express ourselves.
And let it be said, one of the things I've asked MCSO, and the mayor is familiar with this standing request, for all the data for the accidents at that intersection. So we will have that data. We will have the data from the last accident that occurred there, I believe, last week. And from there, we can make informed decisions. But data needs to drive the decisions.
Yes, sir.
And so we are looking towards that data to ensure that we're doing the right thing. But to shoot from the hip and keep on, you know, trying to do Band-Aids doesn't solve anything. So we did put on the street stop ahead signs, or the painting. We do have stop ahead signs there. But once again, it's well marked intersection. There's a lot of bad actors and a lot of folks that are not paying attention that are driving through that intersection. And so, you know, LED lights do not stop that. You know, there's data that validates that as well. So, we'll certainly look to these LED lights. You know, that will be close to residents, and I don't know if they would like the blinking light at night, but we can certainly evaluate that.
Yeah, I think we should look at it, but we'll learn from our experience here, and these public meetings, I think they're going to happen in probably September, October, I think, is what I heard at one time. So it'll be a good thing. Okay, that'll close the public comment part. Any questions or comment? Do we have another one? Sorry. You're welcome. Ariane Buser.
Hi, thanks. Ariane Buser, Carefree resident. Thank you, Gary, for your presentation. I actually love what Mike said, because I live not too far from Pima and Cave Creek Road intersection, and it is a nightmare. And I'm a cyclist, and the people that blow through that stop sign or the four-way stop sign don't even pay attention to what's going on. It is really horrific, and so it's actually surprising that wasn't included in this little study that you showed. But I was curious, if we can't do the signs, what about those bumps, the rumble strips on the road? Because I know that was it Mule, Train, and Stagecoach? There are some that lead up to that. I mean, that might be a more cost-effective way to getting people to, I mean, because those like really rattle your car. So it's kind of like a, hey, wake up, you need to slow down. You're along with the street signs that say stop ahead. But just wanted to mention that if that was something that you considered, because that might be, like I said, a more efficient, cost efficient and effective way to kind of like a quick fix, especially since this mag thing might seem like it will take a long time, most likely, right? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And we do have those rumble strips before
we have some
these
now.
respective intersections. So that's another measurement of, hey, you're approaching the intersection as those rumble strips are there. Now, over time, the problem with those rumble strips is those buttons tend to flatten out. So, and the opposite side is they also make a lot of noise when you go over them, and we get a lot of complaints from nearby residents. So it's a balancing act. Yeah.
Okay, well, that closes the public comment. Thank you. Okay, so before, any other questions or comments from the council? So hearing none, I would ask for a motion to award a contract for the Tom Darlington pedestrian crosswalk project to Falcone Brothers Construction for the amount of $761,264.
Motion to approve contract awarded to Falcone Brothers Construction in the amount of $761,264. Thank you, Mayor.
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously, thank you. Item number 11, call to the public. So we have one slip. Do you wish to speak? Okay, so we have no call to the public. A motion to adjourn?
On behalf of Vice Mayor Croyer, motion to adjourn.
Okay, second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Good meeting, thank you.